Hello everyone, I am Kumar from DevOps University. I hope everyone is able to see the screen and able to hear me very well. If not, just give me a ping on the chat. Perfect. So guys, welcome to DevOps Certified DevOps Foundation Program conducted by DevOps University. This is basically 5 days foundation program where we will be learning about very basic of DevOps, what DevOps is, what is the need of DevOps, why the DevOps is in such a demand in this IT world, and you might be seeing almost every company is adopting towards DevOps, and the predictions are by 2020 almost 90% of the organization will be adopting DevOps. So we will be learning about all the basic core concepts about DevOps. Then we will be starting with the open source DevOps toolset like Git, Maven, Jenkins, and Docker, and then Kubernetes. Some of the part of Kubernetes we are going to cover. For the configuration management, we will be covering Ansible, and for infrastructure monitoring, Negoes, Prometheus, Grafana, and for the logging, Splunk. And we will be going through and seeing how to set up a working CI/CD pipeline. We will be working on all those tools, and I am having a trainer with me. His name is Naresh, and he is having around 15 years of experience, and most of the time he has worked on the DevOps area and the Linux administration side. He is CKA certified, or I would say certified Kubernetes administrator and Docker administrator certified and Linux administrator. He has wonderful experience delivering trainings on the DevOps. He is real-time practitioner where we are providing consulting to some of the major MNCs where Naresh is helping us. And this entire workshop is divided into two parts. The very first part where we will be learning all the concept and everything in these 5 days, that is starting from today. And after fifth day, you will be getting this exam portal, certification exam portals access. You can go and you can appear for the exam, and all the curriculum, everything that you will come in the exam will be covered in this 5 days workshop. We will be providing you some of the mock exams also, so you can go and check on our website devopsuniversity.org. You can go and you can do practice to explore more on the exam point of view, and how the exam will come, what type of question will be there. So you can try all the mock exams, and at the same time we will be giving you the recorded sessions. Like once the training will be ended, maximum we will be taking 12 hours time to upload the trainings, and all the URLs details, everything will be shared with you well in advance. And the training, I hope everyone has tried to set up their AWS account. If not, Naresh will demonstrate you how to set up it. And you can go through our website where we have given the link for configuring the AWS instance. If you have questions, you can post on the WhatsApp group, as well as we will highly recommend every one of you to join our LinkedIn community. So, and if you have not joined yet, so please join it, post your questions, queries there. So our trainers, our other practitioner, and the community people will also love to help each other on the LinkedIn. So we are basically community driven company, and we promote to share our knowledge within the community. So it's highly recommended for all of you to go and join our LinkedIn group. And for the exam point of view, this is a very I would not say it's a very difficult exam, or you need to do any special type of preparation for it. Just go through the curriculum that our trainer is going to cover in this session, and this exam will come only with single attempt. And the questions will be all the question will be MCQ type question, true false questions, and the number of question will will come around 30, and the passing scores is 70%, and duration for this exam is 45 minutes, and the certification validation is lifetime. So the accreditation of the certificate is like, across the industries, companies like Oracle, Salesforce, Workday, Sapient, Accenture. So like we are providing corporate trainings to them, and our certificate is approved and recognized by them. So this is all about the program. Let me quickly go through the questions that I'm getting here. Okay, yeah, so we have put everyone on mute. So if you have any question, Ravi, you can put on the chat window, and at the end of the session, we will be unmuting everyone, and we will be making it open forum where you can ask your questions directly to trainer. But while within the session, if you have any come up with any question, please post on the chat so we can help you out to get the answer. Yes, Rohit, this is the chat option that we are having. uh, I am audible, or I am having any are you guys facing any problem with me? Okay, so how much hands-on project we will be doing in this course? So Mohammed asked this question. So Taneem, in this exam, in this program, we will be going through from very basic to some level of extent, to intermediate level, where we will be starting from the very basic steps about DevOps and its landscape, the role and responsibility in the DevOps domain, and then the tools. And great, yeah, and we'll be doing hands-on on Git. We'll be doing hands-on on Jenkins. So everything will be hands-on. But when we are going to build a CI/CD, so for CI/CD we will be using only one project, because we can't do multiple projects with the one pipeline. So our objective is to teach you as much as you can learn, and with the recordings we will be sharing all the learning materials, all the commands for your practice at your home after the classes. So the recommended it is once the class will be done, we will be trying our level best to upload the recording as soon as possible. But recording takes some time to get it processed. So that's why we are saying we are taking maximum 12 hours time, but we will be our previous if I go with previous experience, we usually upload within 2 to 3 hours. All the commands will be there, so go and do practice as much as you can. And the whole idea here is, once you are doing the practice in your daytime, and if you come across with any question, any query, or you have any difficulties, or anything that is stopping you working, post your queries on LinkedIn group, or the WhatsApp group. So it will be really helpful for you. So we can help you out to fix the problem as much as we can. Okay, any other question? So Gautam, this is the the chat window where you are putting the questions. You can put the question here. So our helping or assistant teacher will help you out to answer all the questions. Okay. Yes, Abhishek, we are going to cover the CI/CD tools. So for CI/CD tool, the continuous integration pipeline will be done using Jenkins, and we will be taking example of Java application, where we'll be starting from Git, where our code is placed, and it is used as a uh, distributed source code management tool. And then for the build tool, we are going to use Maven. And when we do the Maven build, we have to do certain types of testings, we have to do some static code analysis. That for it we are going to use PMD, and then we are having and all this thing will be done on the continuous integration server like Jenkins. And step by step you will be seeing, like, we are going to use Ansible, we will be going to use Docker, we will be going to configure some of the continuous monitoring tools like, Negois or Prometheus, and then the Splunk. Okay, right. So Gopal has asked the question. One second. The AWS. Okay, just give me a second. Like, guys, I'm getting so many questions. Okay. Okay. So Ravi said the how many attempts for certification exam. So there will be only one attempt. Okay. The Shrikala is saying entirely new to this DevOps. Please explain from initial level. Don't worry, Shrikala. We will be teaching it from the very beginning, so you will never ever feel like, you are not getting the concept. Then our objective is to make everyone understanding. Okay, so Gopal's question is, will you help us in setting up VM on Ubuntu? Yes, our trainer will, or Naresh will help you out to show, like, how to set up the VM on the Ubuntu machine. However, if you follow our AWS setup guide, you will be able to set up your machine. Okay, so Gautam asked a question. We are not able to view the question asked by other. So for that, like, you have to choose the option to or to all entire audience. Then only, like, you can share the question with everyone else. If in case we do not clear exam in first attempt, then you have to buy again the certification voucher. But, like, we are very much sure, if you follow the training, if you follow the trainer, you will 100% clear the exam. The passing rate of the exam is more than 95%. Right. So Taneem has asked the question: is it possible to give the exam after a few weeks? So the exam voucher, or another certification exam validity, is 60 days. So within the 60 days, at any point of time, you can appear for the exam. That's the reason we haven't enabled everyone's access for the exam portal till now. We will be enabling the exam portal's access on the last day of the training session. So you will be having 6 days, 60 days. We don't want to, like, consume your initial days on that part. Okay, so Raghavendra asked the question for this DevOps course. Any prior experience required? I'm completely new for this. So frankly speaking, for this DevOps course, no prior knowledge is required, only basic understanding about the software development. If you have, it is more than sufficient. And having the basic knowledge about the Linux command is also advisable. That's the reason we have shared complimentary Linux, fundamental Linux training videos. The reason is all the commands that we are going to use it, and every tool is open source tool, and they are very much their commands are very much similar to Linux based command. So if you know the Linux, it will be really helpful for you. Otherwise you will be struggling with the very basic commands. So the idea is, if you have some time, please go through at least first 2 to 3 videos, and each video is around 1 hour's video. So it's highly recommended. If you go through it, then you will never struggle with the basic of the Linux commands. So no worries, Sarvesh. If your laptop configuration is less, that's the reason, like, we are recommending everyone to do the practical on the AWS cloud. The reason is some of the people are having their office laptop and they can't install Ubuntu on the Ubuntu VM machine on their local laptop. Then that's the reason, we are recommending everyone to set up on the AWS account. And I have seen some of the people also ask the question, can we install Oracle virtual VM on local machine and the AWS account? We need both. So it's entirely your choice. If you are having your personal laptop, you can create VM machine on your local laptop. And I would recommend to get the basic idea about the AWS cloud, how it is, like, what all the VM machine, what is EC2, how to configure the uh, the network part. So just to get the understanding about the basic of the AWS cloud, so we are recommending if you are setting up local VM, you should explore at least once about the AWS cloud as also. Pamulati, if you are having any specific question, you will see, like, we will be covering in this session, so it will be okay for you. Okay. Yes, Sajal, all the practical we will be conducting on the AWS cloud. No problem, Raghavendra. Don't worry about that part. If you are having CAD automation engineer experience, I hope you know basics of the software development. But like I'm pretty sure the way our Naresh is going to explain, you will be learning each and everything in very much detail. So this session is very, very important for everyone, or especially for those people those are not from the DevOps background or development background, or they are very much new to the IT or to the DevOps. So it's very, very much important for them, because I am pretty sure no one can teach you better than Naresh. Right, like, so we will be going to show you how to do the basic setup of the machine. Okay, guys, so you are also facing the problem with my audio.
No, Kumar, I think we are good. Myself.
Perfect, perfect. Why AWS account? What is Ubuntu VM? Why it is required? Can you relate from DevOps? This cause act on Ubuntu. Okay, Ubuntu is basically operating system, Linux-based operating system, and the using of the AWS, because most of the cloud-based or most of the organizations are migrating to the cloud, and they are using AWS cloud or any other cloud in their day-to-day business. For the DevOps, the cloud is one of the major component that is being used, where, like, based on our need, our project need, we can scale up applications and we can scale down applications. So we will be seeing all this stuff, like, in today's session itself. Okay. So Ravi, if you are having audio problem, I would recommend you to join again. I think you have joined the from the web. If you can quickly install the app, you will not face any problem. I would recommend people those have joined from the web to join it from the download the app, and it will be really helpful for you to get the clear voice. Right. So, at the Santosh, at the end of the session, we will be unmuting everyone, so everyone can ask the questions one by one to the trainer to get your doubts clear. But during the session, let's suppose if you come up with any question, you can post the questions on the chat window, and our team will try to answer as much as we can. If we are unable to answer, we will defer the question to the at the end of the session to the Naresh. Great, guys. So now without okay, I have dual setup with Windows 7 and Ubuntu 18. So if I use Ubuntu directly instead of installation, yeah, it will definitely work. So no worries. So we need the working Ubuntu. That's it. Okay, without further delay, I am handing over to Naresh to take the session. Over to Naresh.
Okay. Thank you, Kumar. Thank you for the quick introduction. Hope everybody is able to hear me all. If you're all able to hear me, quickly say yes so that we can continue with our session. This is Naresh speaking. So, yes, I believe you're all good now. Hope you're all able to see my screen also. So, welcome to the session team. Welcome to the DevOps Foundation course from DevOps University. So we will try to understand what is DevOps today. Means that's the theory part mostly, right? So why exactly, or what exactly is DevOps, and why exactly DevOps is required in the market right now, or why every organization is looking at DevOps practices to adopt it. So this is what we're going to understand today. Along with that, we're going to try to set up our EC2 instance, or the Ubuntu instance in AWS cloud. So those who are already ready with your accounts, you can follow me for setting up your EC2 Ubuntu instance in the AWS cloud. So that is what the quick agenda for today, team. I mean, I think Kumar might have spoke the complete course agenda, but I'm just speaking about the today's agenda. So we'll try to understand what is DevOps and why DevOps is required in the current industry, and we'll try to set up our EC2 Ubuntu instance. That is what the quick agenda that I'm going to cover in next 2 hours. That is what is the plan. And apart from that, right, so I'll be able to take your questions at the end. So during the session, if you have any questions, please post it in the chat window. Our team will try to help you as much as they can. If not, I'll be taking your all of questions at the end. We'll unmute you and then we'll be able to speak with you. So speak with me accordingly. Okay. So with that understanding, team, so let's proceed further, and I suggest everybody to listen carefully, and then maybe for tomorrow we'll be maybe practicing everything, so do not practice along with me sometime, so you would miss the concepts. So I would request everybody to hear to the concepts, and later you can follow the videos for practicing your things. Do not practice during the session. That is what is a request I'll give to everybody. So that is just a prerequisite, team, and I'm telling you. So let's continue with our session now. Let's start by understanding a very basic terminology. I'm not sure, maybe you are all already working employees, or maybe some of them are freshers. We do have kind of a mixed background people here, so let's take everybody onto the same page. So for that, I'll start with the very basic stuff, what exactly you will be hearing, or the general regular words that you would be hearing in your organizations. So I don't start with directly here, so let's get back to the simple paint maybe, and let me explain a few terminology that you would hear every day today. Correct? The first term which you would be hearing in your organization, team, which not only organization, in outside world also, the term you would always hear is something called as server, right? I know that how does it relate to our topic and everything. We'll try to correlate everything, so but just try to listen and understand the definitions which I'm giving it, and then we'll try to correlate everything where exactly this is going to make sense for us. Okay, so here it is, team. The first time I'm talking about something called as server. The server is something, team, which takes a request and responds to you back. What I mean to say here is that whenever you send a request, let's say that you are going to a web browser and you're hitting something called as google.com, so you are sending a request to get a Google web page or Google website. So where exactly this Google server or google.com application is hosted is something called as a server. So simply what exactly you're doing is something that you are sending a request into the server, and then you are getting a response back. So the server is something, team, where we host our applications. In simple words, application in the sense that can be any application like your google.com or facebook.com or Instagram. These are all called as web applications we normally work with every day to day, right? So how exactly we're going to host them, that is all together we'll try to understand, but that is a definition of a server, right? It works on something called as request and response. So you host something on a server, and then you request something to the server will respond back to you with some response, whatever you hosted on a server. Likewise, you have a Windows laptop, right? You just going to install a VLC media player, and you request, means after you installing it, if you want to play a movie, you simply open that application, right? Opening is something we're requesting the system to open that application and play a movie. So think that that is what is a simple model that everybody works on. You take a server, you install an application, and you try to access that application. So server is where you host or install applications, and we can send a request, and then we'll get a response from that, and then we'll start utilizing that application after you get that into your hands. Now that is what is a basic term, team. You just need to understand, right? So here it is. This is what it is. The server is something which I'm doing it. Okay. Okay. So here it is. The next term, team, as we are trying to understand application, as I just said that the applications are normally installed or hosted on a server to utilize those applications. Application is nothing to team, the day-to-day, whatever you're using it, basically everything is called as an application or a software that you normally install it, right? Now, when you talk about applications, team, there are few types of applications we actually have it in real world. So let me talk about things you can correlate with your day-to-day aspects, something called as desktop applications, or we call it as standalone applications. When I say desktop or standalone applications team, that you would normally install on a desktop machines, such as your Windows laptop or Windows desktop, whatever you do it, such as a Calci application, or let's say that MS Office. These are called as desktop applications, right? Desktop in the sense you install on a server like a laptop and you are start using those applications. Now that is the first type of application team, we always say it, or you've been using for them a long time. Now what exactly the purpose of this one is that exactly whatever the meant for the software, you actually install it and you use that for the purpose which is designed to do it, right? Similar to that one team, the limitation with this standalone applications is that only one user can access this particular application whenever you are, right? Means whoever is in front of that particular system, only that particular person will be able to access that type of application. That is called as standalone, right? It can be accessed by alone or it can be accessed as a single user. Now that is what is the limitation of your standalone applications team. Of course they have their own purpose, but we do have something, we do need some extended features of this one, so we're going to use, or to resolve this problem team, instead of accessing by one person, I want to access the same application by n number of people. Now that is where we talk about something called as web applications. Web applications are nothing but your websites, or the ones you access through the internet, right? Whenever you have a network connection, internet, so whatever you go to the browser and you hit it basically, right? The application is hosted on a different machine somewhere else in a separate server. From your Windows machine or from your laptop, you're able to send a request into that particular server to access that application. Anything when me DevOps University is an application or web application, you access the website, means that application is running on some server somewhere. You are able to send a request into it and then you get a response and you start utilizing that application account. Likewise, you have Amazon. In order to do any purchases, you normally use Amazon. That is called as simply a web application which can be accessible over the internet, and wherever you are in the geographic location, you will be able to access that particular application. Now that is the advantage of your web application. Basically you just need to understand. So we have these different types of applications. One is standalone, one is called as web applications. Now in order to host this web applications team, I'm not sure if you're aware of this one, how do I install these web applications to make it available for the multiple users? Now that is where we talk about something called as web servers. Means that just like you have a laptop is a server basically on which you install something, similar to that one, we take a plain machine and then we install a component called as a web server, right? Just say that you're installing VLC media player to play a movie, right? Movie is separate and VLC media player is separate. So you install a VLC media player to play the movie. Similarly, if I want to host a web application, I install something called as a web server. The examples of web server is something like, Apache, Tomcat or Nginx. If you go to Windows, there's something called as IIS. There are many web servers we have it. We install that web server on top of an operating system and then we host our web application in it, right? So then you can send a request into that particular server called as a web server, and then you can access it, that application, from anywhere you are. And along with that, multiple users can send a request to the same application and they can access the same application accordingly. Now that is the difference between your desktop applications and the web applications team, that you just need to have an idea before we jump on to anything else. This is the very, very basic terminology that you have it. So we have two types of application that we develop always, right? And there is something called as standalone, something called as web applications. Applications which are accessible over the internet and they can be accessed by multiple users and they can be accessed anywhere in the world you are, any geographic location you are. So this is the purpose of your applications team, or the different types of application that we normally see it in units. Any website, consider that any website that you see it as called as a web application, simple words, that can be accessible by anybody. Now, why am I discussing this one team? Try to understand. This is a very, very basic stuff. Why exactly I discussed these two terms is that because our entire IT work, whatever the role that you are in, everything revolves around these two terms only completely. Now, let me explain first of all how or what exactly we are trying to do it. Now, this is where team, I would like to discuss a simple definition of course, we are all software engineers, right? I hope everybody that one. We are all called as software engineers, right? Now what I'll say is that what is the definition of a software engineering, right? I think we might have learned this one during your graduation or sometime, but let's try to recap quickly what exactly the software engineering tells us. Now, if you look at the definition team, right, just look at the definition here, which I'm just giving you, just this one. Now, simply team, the systematic and disciplined approach towards the development and operation and the maintenance of a software. A software is nothing but your web application or a standalone application, right? Everything that we download and install is called as a software, which we use it for some or the other purpose. So what does software engineering tells us is that, it is simply the approach towards the development. How do you develop it, or developers will develop the source code or whatever the code that they write it to develop the application. Once that is developed, that need to be delivered into the end user. Like that facebook.com was developed by Zuckerberg, whatever it may be, so he ensured that this is accessible by n number of people. Means that he made sure that this application is delivered to the end user. That part is called as operation. So he is operating the software in his own data center, and we are able to access it from our site or from our internet connections, whatever it may be, right? So the software is operatable, means it can be usable once it is developed. You make sure that it is usable for the end users. That is the part we call it as operations phase. Now, once it is using by the end user, right? Whenever you have some issue with the Facebook or something, some applications, they keep on supporting you, right? If you have crashed your application some reason, now they may release a new version of it or new bug fix for it. So that is called as maintenance, right? Simply developed, sent to the end user is accessing the application. This phase is called as operations phase. And then finally, if there is any issues with the application that you are using it in the runtime, then the applications will be fixed, or the bug fixes or new features will be added to the application to enhance the client experience and everything, or user experience we call it. Now this phase is called as maintenance mode. So the software engineering tells us team that how to develop, right, and then how to operate, and then how to maintain this software by the end user. That is what all about the software engineering definition. In order to simply say that one, that to deliver an efficient and reliable software product to the client or end user or to the market, whatever you call it, that is the end goal of a software engineering, right? Simply try to understand that is a goal of a software engineering. Now we are all software engineers, we are all working in an industry called a software industry. Our end goal, or any IT organization's end goal, is to maintain the softwares or deliver the software or develop something, deliver it, and then maintain it. That is the end goal of any IT organization. You have it in the industry right now. That is what the thing you need to keep in mind. Just keep this definition in the mind, team, on the top level. Now, in order to do this one, how to develop and all these things, we approach towards something called as SDLC. I think most of you might be aware of this one already. SDLC is nothing but we call it as a software development life cycle. Again, this also talks about what is in the software engineering, but it gives a process or step-by-step approach. The implementation phase, we call it planning, creating, testing, and delivering of a software to the client or market. Now, software development lifecycle help you to make some plan towards it and develop it and then finally deliver it. Now, again, SDLC process aims to produce a high quality software that meets the customer expectation. In simple terms, we are talking about, right? Now you can correlate in the first terms we discussed, which is called as server and then application. End of the day, we are trying to deliver it, or we are trying to host it on our server. And this is what all we're trying to understand. So our job revolves around these terminology every day to day. You must think it in a different direction. That's all about it, right? So here it is, team. This is the very, very basic now. Let's try to understand over the years. Let's say that I know that we've been doing the development or software development for over the years or decades now. From the time the softwares are invented or the computers are invented, we started writing the source code, or we started developing many, many types of softwares. Now, the software development lifecycle team, we used to have different processes. That is where we can talk about this evolution of IT, right? Look at this one, team. I know that everybody knows these things already, but I'm just quickly recapping evolution of IT over the years. What are the various software development lifecycle models we're using to develop the software? And along with that, how does application architectures are getting changing? When I say application team, it's nothing but a software, or how do we use to develop and everything, and where exactly we used to host them, right? Hosting, nothing but In order to make it functional, we need to host it on a server, or we need to deploy that software or install that software onto some physical hardware somewhere it will work. So that is where exactly we used to host that over the years. And there are some terminology that you used in your organization that also you would need to understand, right? Now team, the first evolution of IT, I hope you all know about this one. The first evolution of IT where we started the software development lifecycle is something called as waterfall, right? So what is waterfall, and then why do we need waterfall basically? Let's try to look at that. So waterfall model is time, we call it as a step-by-step approach. Try to understand team, we are in the world right now where we are talking about DevOps. In order to understand about the DevOps, you just need to have an idea about what exactly this waterfall model is and what are the troubles we have with the waterfall model. Along with that, what is agile and what exactly is the problems we had with agile, then we can understand about the DevOps accordingly. That is what we all going to talk about, the team. So let's talk about the waterfall first of all for a few minutes, and then I will talk about the agile also, what exactly we use it, and then finally we'll talk about the DevOps accordingly. So this is what all you need to understand, team. So coming to the waterfall model, team, hope most of you already know it or you might have learned it, but just quickly recap it. Waterfall model is called as a step-by-step approach of developing a software. Like there are various steps in this model, we call it as means. When I say step-by-step approach, team, when you talk about software development lifecycle, we talk about requirement gathering, then you talk about planning, then you talk about designing, then you talk about implementing the source code or writing the code for it, and then finally you may deliver it, and then finally you maintain it. So these are the different phases we have in the software development life cycle, for which we will implement it step by step. So waterfall tells that until I finished requirement gathers, right? So I cannot proceed with the planning and designing, right? That is how you do it. So once the planning is over, then only I move on to the design. Once the design is over, I need to move on to the next phase, which is called as implementation. So there is a dependency on each and every step here in order to deliver your software. This way of development, team, this way of development, you tell me now how much time would it take it? Because I am depending on the previous steps. While I'm doing the previous steps, rest everybody will be in the halted mode or passed mode. Basically they cannot do anything. So this way of development, team, just in simple words I'm talking about, it used to take, let's say the client as the end user, he has given me a requirement to develop a software. Now once I take the requirement from the client, in order to deliver that software into the his hands or a client hands, I may take at least 6 months. That was the timeline we normally take it to deliver it to the end user. Now this is a very long time, team. Now think about the world you are in right now. If you order something in Amazon, basically you expect the delivery immediately. Maybe the next day delivery itself you're expected, right? Now this is the same case with the client also. Now he is also expecting the delivery to be faster. Now using a waterfall model, basically the delivery is something taking 6 months. Now if I say that I order today and he will deliver it after 6 months, by 6 months, right, by the time I pass the 6 months, I may no more require that one. The requirements are given, what the requirement may change also, right? Now that is the biggest problem here. Using waterfall model for development, some developing of a software takes a longer time basically to deliver it. So that is where people have started, okay, this is going to take a longer time. No, this is not a good approach for me. So let me take it into a different way. That is what the people said. That's the reason we are moving from waterfall model into the next model, which is called as agile, right? That is where we might speed up the software development process. With waterfall model, the software delivery to the end user is taking a huge amount of time. So in order to improve that one, we moved on to the next phase. Okay, let's say that that is a problem with your waterfall model. Okay, that's good. But let's try to understand a few other terminology also that you may need to know it about it, which is called as application architecture, and then the deployment and packaging, we call it, which is called as where we host the applications. Before we discuss about agile, let's try to understand what exactly is the monolithic architecture, and then what exactly are the physical servers, right? So just to show you that theme, basically, just to show you that, let me open it right here. So team, what is monolithic architecture is that, try to understand. Okay, so when I say monolithic architecture, team, when you're developing an application, basically, let's say that application has a number of features, right? So let me talk about something called as maybe talk about something called as your any bank application that you have it, right? Let's say that all the bank application, let's say that bank features, but when you access ICICI Bank or something, you open the application. Let's say that we are talking about the internet banking, especially when you log into your internet banking team, where you see multiple features, right? You see about the debit card section, you see about the credit card section, and you see about the loans module, and you see about mutual funds. So these are all various features of application, we call it. That is first part. So you develop or you combine all these application code. When you start writing the code for this all different modules team, it is going to be a very bigger code. That is first thing. And in order to host that one, let's say that I took a, a machine. Basically, let's say that I took a machine with an operating system on it, and I'm hosting my application here, which is called as your bank application. Let's say that this is my internet banking or bank application which I hosted it. Now this bank application team, this bank application requires a database also. You know what is a database, I believe. So means that whenever you getting or whenever you're making some transaction, right, on the website or something online, right, your statements have been shown it. But if you want to look at the statement for last 6 months or 1 year also, they'll be able to show you. So where exactly all the data is getting saved, whatever the transaction that you're doing it, whatever the information about your account, your username, password, everything is stored, right? Now for that component team, there will be something called as a database will be there. So when I'm talking about bank database team, so that database is a separate component, I need to install it again. So here team, there are multiple modules or various components or dependent components of your application, are everything hosted on a single server. Means that this is how it is team, think about it. I have a single server, single machine. In that machine itself, I'll host all these various types, various components related to your application into a single server. Then I call this as monolithic architecture, which means that, right, every component is interdependent. I cannot separate them out. I cannot separate them out basically. So I have to host them on a single server so that they can communicate with each other for performing the whatever the action they have to do. That this is called as monolithic architecture team. In simple words, all the components of an application, the dependent components of an application, are hosted or tightly coupled, we call it. This is also called as simply a tightly coupled architecture. Tightly coupled architecture, we call it. So this is where we talk about something called as monolith. So every dependent component of your application is tightly coupled and then hosted on a single machine. I cannot separate them out. So that here team, if you think about it, when you are thinking about writing this different components application together, it is a heavy product, which means that you may write a 10,000 lines of a code or 100,000 of lines of code to make this happen, everything, because and everything is interdependent. Now, what exactly is the problem with this architecture team? If I have problem with database, that will affect my bank application, but they are not, of course, they are dependent, but I cannot easily troubleshoot the issues. That is the first problem, okay? Because I'm writing a 10,000 lines of code for preparing all this application, and for troubleshooting the issues, it will be a very, very difficult task for me to troubleshoot it. The second point is that when you have this bigger code, the size of the application also bigger, which means that it may be in GB something when I want to move this application somewhere. Now moving this application becomes a heavier task. Means if I want to shift this application or deploy this application into a server, and it takes heavy time. You know that, right? Whenever you are installing a bigger application, it takes a longer time for installation. Why? Because it's a heavyweight kind of application, is very huge. It takes a time to deploy the application. Now that is the problems with your team. We are expecting everything to be faster, but here troubleshooting is a bigger issue. It will take a longer time. Along with that, deploying the applications of heavyweight is something also takes a longer time. Now this is the problems with your monolithic architecture. Basically, you just need to have an idea. Now that is where again, when you're talking about this is monolithic architecture team, this is how the people used to develop the application all together as a one single piece. But that's need to be changed. That will change it at the next level. But here again, where exactly we host this particular server, of when I say server team, these servers are called as physical servers. What do you mean by physical server here? Consider that your laptop is a physical server, which means that you have a hardware. Like whenever you purchase a laptop team, you worry about something called as how much CPU should I have it, how much RAM should I have it, how much disk space should I have it. These are all called as physical devices, right? Physical components of your system. So that is called as physical. And then when you install some operating system directly on a physical components like your laptop, you take a laptop is a hardware. On top of it, you just install this operating system. Then that machine is called as a physical server, right? That is what all you just need to have an idea. Okay, so this type of applications we usually use to host it on a physical servers. That is what is something called as a physical server. And finally, if there is a term called as data center, what is a data center in your IT organizations? Basically, where your organization or a company will have a building, right? Just like a building you have it. In that building, you're going to keep all the hardware and enable some networking to connect to the servers accordingly. That is what all you're trying to do it. So this is the first era of IT industry team where we used to have this kind of development, this kind of operation phase, like hosting the technology and application architectures are a little bit different. And finally, we used to host them in our own data center accordingly. That's our own things accordingly. That is what you can think about it. Now, in order to resolve the problems of your development process called as waterfall meeting, we jumped onto something called as agile model. Just hold on for a minute, team. Just give me a second, team. That is what I'm just looking at. Right, so here it is, right? So we are just looking at this one. This is called as your waterfall basically. Now we are talking about something called as agile, right? So what exactly is agile and how do you overcome the problems of your agile is something you just need to understand. The only goal, team, deliver your things to the end user faster. Keep that words in the mind. So with waterfall, it was taking a longer time for delivery, right? So development takes a long time, along with the delivery also takes a longer time. That is what's the problem with your waterfall. Now, when it comes to the agile, we try to improve our speed. That is the first goal, right? We want to deliver our product or develop something faster and deliver to the end user faster. That was the goal in the mind, basically, to ensure that the client is getting satisfied here. That is something you need to understand. With agile team, we change the model or we change the way that we develop a software basically. Now, just team, you might be having an idea about it, or let me explain this one more time. What exactly agile is, or how exactly agile works basically is, right? Agile sales team, it is kind of iterations model or iterative model we call it. So what exactly we do is in waterfall we used to gather the entire requirement of client at once and we start developing it. Now with this agile model team, we say that okay, you prioritize, or we ask the client basically what exactly you need immediately, tell me that, take the break the requirements into a smaller pieces basically, and take the requirements whatever is high priority from the client. Now, here team, if you think about it, this model basically, there is something called as a product owner in your organization who talks to the client and client gives the requirement to him, but he's not giving the entire requirement. He gives the requirement whatever is required for the next 2 weeks or so, or next 1 month or so. He takes that requirement and he writes something called as user stories. A user story is a task or a feature that you want to develop a software. Think about the software piece that you're trying to develop. Those pieces are written as a tasks. What as those tasks are called as now user stories in your organization. Now this user stories team will be picked up by a team called as a scrum team or agile team, you call it normally. There is a team of people, there is a team members you have it. This team will try to pick up these things, or in order to pick up these user stories, there is a plan called as sprint planning, we call it. The sprint planning is something, let's say that I am targeting this user stories to be completed within next 2 weeks. The target for developing or target for finishing this task which is given by the client is that a sprint, or nothing but a 2 week sprint or a 1 month, we call it maximum. Let's say that every organization follows something called as a 2 week sprint, means that 14 days I'm giving you the target to finish all these tasks. Now that is where these people starts planning it. The team member picks up whatever they want to or whatever they can work on. Now there is a guy called as here a scrum master. This guy is kind of a mentor or kind of a leader who leads this team actually. And once this planning is over, people starts working on it. Right? People pick up the task and they will start working on it accordingly. And the target for the team to finish these tasks is within the sprint time. That is called as sprint iteration, we call it. It can be 2 weeks or it can be a month also, based on the organization, based on the project, that will vary accordingly. Now, after starting working team, after you start working on it, there is a every day there will be a meeting called a sprint plan, a sprint meeting we call it, or daily sprint meeting or daily stand up we call it. Now during this call, or there is a call scheduled by Scrum Master or mentor here, he will ask every team member, okay, what exactly you did today or yesterday, what exactly you're going to work on today, and is there any problem that you have it for finishing the task. These are the regular three questions will be discussed by your Scrum Master. If you have some trouble finishing the stories, or if you have some problem in finishing the task, you can simply tell the mentor, so he will try to help you accordingly to finish the task within the two sprint time. Now assume that team, this is how it goes. Every day you will start, every day you meet up and you talk about it, whatever it may be, it happens accordingly. Now once you're done with this, let's say that you're able to work on everything, and with end of the sprint you finished all the task, whatever is assigned to you, it is finished task. Now after you, that team here is that we're going to demo that whatever you did it to the client, which means that we have a continuous interaction with the client, so that client is also able to see what exactly you're developing it. Correct. Now that is where team client gets satisfied also. Okay, I'm able to see the product before end user or before the end product. I'm able to see bits and pieces also. Client is more happy. We'll demo to it. If the client accepts it, okay, which is good only, I'm okay with this product, you can proceed for the next requirement. But if the client does not accept, or the client wants to change it, some requirement here, client also can change it. So agile model will help you to make dynamic changes in between also. That is what is something we call it. So this way team, instead of developing or instead of delivering the whole application as a unit, we are delivering the same application bits and pieces. This is also called as iterative model. So every 2 weeks you're able to develop some features and you're able to give it to the end user. So end user started enjoying the features. This way of delivery made it easier for end user or development process also. We speed up our development process now. Think this team, with agile, the speed up of the development is increased a lot. Earlier we used 6 months to deliver it, but here for every 2 weeks, sorry team, just give me a second. So for every 2 weeks you're developing it, you're adding new features, or for every 1 month at least you are releasing that into the market. Try to understand team here, whenever you're releasing it, which means that you may developing a feature every 2 weeks, but you may not be delivering it immediately to the end user also. Client is looking at it, but not all the users. For example, Facebook may be, developing every 2 weeks there's a new feature, but they will release that into the market only at a particular time, right? After 1 month or 2 months, like that they will actually implement it. So that is what the problem is. Still we are able to develop it faster, but we are not able to deliver it to the end user as soon as it is ready. Means that is ready, but you are combining multiple features together and you're delivering it this later point. That is what is the problem here again. Now that is what is called as agile process team, where we are able to speed up the development and we are able to deliver the application to the end user is faster. But this is where again we can talk about something called as, okay, agile was able to speed up the process. Good. Speed up the development process. I'm talking about only the development process, where we have to still discuss about the operations and maintenance phase. I did not discuss about that. So with agile team, the only thing was happened is the development was speeded up, and we are able to develop the product every 2 weeks, bits and pieces, iterative model. Every 2 weeks you're able to deliver, add a new feature, the client is getting happy. That is what all we're talking about here. Now, forget about that agile. Assume that with agile, we are able to develop the product a little bit faster than the waterfall model. That's good. Now here team, think about it here, something called as application architecture also we updated a little bit, which is called as your n-tier architecture or 3-tier architecture team. Try to understand about this. Earlier we discussed about something called as monolithic architecture, right? Where we call this as a physical server, right? And then team, here we are talking about something called as n-tier architecture or a 3-tier architecture. What do you mean by n-tier architecture? Or we also call it as 3-tier architecture. Most of you might have heard about a 3-tier architecture. So what exactly this 3-tier architecture is that team? Let's say that earlier, right, the application, right, is in a server. Basically, let's say that this is my server, the physical server which I talked about it. Now team, in order to host the application separate server, we took it, means I take some servers here, different servers, not exactly one server, but I take some different server and I host or deploy my application. Let's say that this is the server where I hosted my bank application, or let's say that I used a web server kind of a stuff and I hosted my application here. Now, the second thing is that I host the database in a different server. That is what is something called as, instead of hosting in a single server, basically we host in a different server altogether. Now, instead earlier team, in order to access the bank application, I may be sitting in that particular box itself, kind of a client and everything sits here. Now we can send a request into the server by using a client. Let's say that you're using a browser, right? Maybe you use a browser to send a request into this one, right? So let's say that browser is your client. Basically, from the client, you're sending a request into the bank website or bank server where the bank application is hosted or installed. Then you're able to access it accordingly, correct? Now here team, you can see that the client is separated into a separate thing. Client is hosted at your things. Now the server is hosted in a different server, right? That is what you call it. And the database is hosted in a different server altogether. Now team, here if you think about it simply, right, this is the tier 1, we call it the client tier, you can call it. Now here we call it is about tier 2, and here we call it as about tier 3. Means that we are actually separated out the component. The dependencies have been breaked out. The dependencies are breaked out completely. Now all the bank application, the bank features are hosted here, like whatever you have it. When you access your bank application, you see something called as debit card features, credit card features. All these things are hosted in a single server here like this, right? Let's say that loan module or mutual fund module, whatever you have it, all the bank application, whatever the features of your bank application is hosted in single server. Now the database where it is writing the data into a database server, separate server altogether, separate physical machine. Think about it, this is going to be a physical or virtual machine like that. This is a separate physical machine, we're talking about this one itself, right? This is a separate physical machine, like a different laptops you have it, and you hosted a application in a separate laptop and a database in a separate laptop, and the clients, they are communicating with each other accordingly, right? Now this is how team, you can say that this is a physical server, right? So physical server according to this is how you do team. This is why this is called as 3-tier architecture. There are 3 different tiers that you see it basically. So this is called as a 3-tier architecture, or also called as n-tier architecture accordingly. So this is how team we can think about it. Using browser, we send a request to the bank server, you get the response back. Now whenever you say some transaction or you perform some transaction with bank, basically bank try to save the data into the database automatically. Bank application will write the data to the database. Now the database is hosted, database is persisted, the data means if you want to see the last 1 year transactions also, bank or application will talk to the database. It will fetch the data from the database and will show you in the UI again. Now this is what is called as this one team 3-tier architecture. In general word we call it, but if you go for the technical terminology, there is, I'll tell you, uh, this is called as presentation layer, right? There's a 3 tiers, we call it as presentation layer, right? And there is something called as business layer, right? And then there is something called as data layer. So here in the presentation layer is nothing but your browser. Consider that as a UI basically. And whenever you submit a request, something, there is a process happens in between that is called as a business layer, where it is trying to perform some action and do some actions what you are asked for. Now that is called as a business layer, or business processing will happen accordingly. And then whenever something is returned to the data, that is called as database. This is in the technical terminology team, but just to make you understand in the general terminology, you can understand this is nothing but your 3-tier architecture that being used in your things accordingly. So this is what all you need to understand team about this one. So here we talked about agile, and we are also improvised on our architecture side so that it is easy for me to deploy now, because the 10,000 line code is deployed or separated out into 5,000. It will easy for me to troubleshoot it. When I separate it also, it becomes a little lightweight for me. So lightweight components are easy to deploy. That is what means, rather than it takes a lesser time than the whole application again. That is what something you need to understand. Now this is how team you think about agile model and entire architecture works out. Now we also converted the physical server into the virtual server, right? What exactly physical again, what exactly virtual? We already discussed team, right? The physical server is nothing but the machine where you have an operating system. Let's say that this is my hardware components, I have it, simply I call it. Let's say that there is something called as operating system you install directly. There's a physical component, let's say that I have, whenever I'm purchasing a laptop, let's say that I took something called as 64 GB RAM, 32 CPUs. This is at the enterprise level team. For your laptop, you may not consider this much capacity, but at the enterprise level, your organizations buy a big fat servers or big physical servers, we call it. This is how they do it. Let's say that a 10 TB hard disk like this. So this is the capacity of a server team. The physical servers always have in an enterprise level, in an organization level. Physical servers always have a very good capacity. That's all you need to understand. Okay, so this is what it is. This is called as your physical, right? Physical server. Physical server, I call it. Now this is where you install your OS, and then to host your applications team, we simply, let's say that by taking a Java application example, we install Java to host our Java application. And as I said, like in order to make my application accessible by multiple users, I need to install a component called as web server, right? So web server is something we install it. Inside this one, you host your application. This is where I host my piece of code, whatever I developed it. I host it here so that everybody else can send a request into this one and can access the application accordingly. Now this is the world of physical world team. Here you may see that what is the problem with physical servers. If it is a single application team, a simple application basically, it may not be using all these resources, right? Here it has a huge resources. My Java application is a very lightweight application. It requires only a 3 to 4 GB of RAM, and then let's say that 2 CPU or 4 CPU only. But what about the other resources here, right? You may ask me like, okay, can I host another application on the same server? Like, let's say that there are two banks now. Let's say that there is an SBI bank and there is an ICICI bank also available. So can I host both the things on a same server here? Can we do that? We don't do that, right? Because we know that SBI is always little slow, and they may have some problem with it that would affect my ICICI also. So in an enterprise level team, every project or every applications are hosted in a different servers, just to not to disturb each other accordingly. We separate out the servers so that they can have their own space for working them accordingly. That is the reason team, in this case, the physical servers are of good performance where they're excellent, but in order to utilize the resources better way, we need to go for the next level. Now that is where team we converted something into the virtualization. I hope you guys know what exactly is a virtualization, right? So everybody might be aware of it already, but let me tell you, the same physical capacity server team, let's say that I'm still taking the same physical here, the capacity, the plain hardware, I took it with the same capacity. But instead of installing an operating system here, I install a separate software called as hypervisor. Hypervisor is something team you already know about it, as few of them are already asked like, can I use my own, the virtual box on my local laptop, right? So try to understand team. Let's say that you have a Windows laptop and you want to practice Linux, then you start thinking about installing a virtual box or VM workstation on your laptop, and then you start creating multiple virtual machines. Just to show you that team, on my Windows machine also I have something called as VM workstation, which acts as a hypervisor, or which lets me create another operating system on top of my Windows operating system. See this? I'm running on Windows, I'm logged into Windows, but there is a virtual box here available for me, a VM workstation, where I'm able to see the Ubuntu is working for me, right? So this is what is called as your virtualization team. Like, instead of installing, a separate hardware, or instead of buying a separate laptop, on the same physical laptop, I have created another virtual machine, which is called as my Linux machine. Now, in an enterprise level team, try to understand, they don't use this one, that there is something called as, this is called as type 2 hypervisor team. What you're seeing is called as type 2 hypervisor. When I say type 2, basically there are two types of hypervisors. Type 2 hypervisor, which is called as, which can be installed right on top of OS, means that I have a Windows operating system, and on top of Windows operating system I install something called as VM workstation, that I'm calling it as hypervisor. But there is something called as type 1 hypervisor, which can be installed on, right, installed on directly on a bare metal, right? When I say bare metal team, just like you have hardware and top of you install operating system, similar to that one, instead of installing an operating system, I can directly install this hypervisor, like I'm showing here, no operating system but just hypervisor. Once I have done this one, this will let me create a software computer called as a virtual machine, or a VM we call it. So whenever you create a virtual machine team, right, this hypervisor let me create a bits and pieces of small computers on a single hardware, right? So this is called as virtualization team, virtual servers we call it in simple words. Here virtual servers means each machine is called as a VM or a virtual machine, you call it VM1, VM2. What exactly is the consideration when we are creating this virtual machines team? Let's say that while I'm creating a virtual machine, this hardware or software lets me allow me to allocate some set of resources. Let's say that underlying hardware has 64 GB RAM, right? But here I'm allocating only 4 GB RAM for my system, right? And let's say that I want to do it, let's say that 4 CPU, I want to do that 100 GB disk. So this is the capacity I'm allocating to one virtual machine team. Likewise, I can split the resources of hardware into multiple virtual machines, and I can create as many virtual machines I wanted. Now this is called as virtualization team. Here the advantage is that, right here the advantage is that you can see that the smaller resources, now I can install the operating system here of my own choice, whatever the way you are doing it. This acts as a computer itself directly, whatever you used earlier. Now this also has some capacity. Now I can install Java, right? I can install web server, then I can install my application, and this can be enabled for end user also, and then people can access it accordingly. Now the advantage is that I can create multiple types of system. I can have a Linux machine, or I can have a Windows operating system, and I can host a different .NET application here, right? Likewise, I keep on creating multiple virtual machines here. Every system is an independent system. Every system is an independent system here. One system will not disturb the other one. So they can see this one, I can install a Node.js application here, or a Python application, whatever you want. So the virtualization made our life easier, team. It is easy to create the virtual machines. Now, whatever the things that you are using in your organization also, most of them are virtual machines only always. You might know that you call them as VMs always. What exactly VM is that one? This is how we create a VM and then we give a VM to utilize the resources more effectively. Obviously, now if one single hardware is converted into multiple things, we are able to utilize the resources effectively, and we are also able to host multiple applications on the same hardware. Earlier, one physical server is equal to one application, but in this one physical machine is equal to multiple applications, and better resource utilization that you are getting with the virtualization. That is what the advantage. Over the night, virtualization has changed the world. Every organization is able to save a lot of money because of this one, so people have adopted this one quickly, and then every organization, 100%, every organization is using the virtual machines only right now in the world. Every cloud service provider also provides you a virtual machine always. Whenever you go to a cloud and you create, that is called as a virtual machine always. You create it on based on your need accordingly. Okay, so this is what is the difference between a physical and virtual servers, team. I hope you're all clear, right? That is all about it. Now, team, now here it is. We converted into physical server into virtual server to make the better processing or better utilization of everything, to save a lot of cost for your organization, everything. Finally, we started using the hosted data centers also. Think that, team, data center is like your own kitchen where you place everything, vessels, stove, utensils, and whatever you do it, and finally you bring the vegetables, and then you cook it yourself and you eat it. That is called as your own data center, right? Means where organization keeps, have a building where they can keep all the hardware. They hire the engineers to set up the hardware and everything. They hire, or they maintain the ACs, they maintain the power bills and everything. So everything is taken care by your organization itself. Now that is called as your own data center, just like your own kitchen, what you do it. Now the hosted data center is something like, team, whenever you feel hungry, you go to a hotel and you order something, you eat and come out. That is what is something, right? Now the hosted data center is also like that. There is a third party company who provides you the servers. Means they have their own data center, they create the servers, they maintain the servers, they maintain the power backup, everything do it. But as the end user, I go there, right? I order some servers. Let's say that I need 10 servers, give me the 10 servers. You're not going to take them, but you're just going to access them accordingly. They will host on their data center. They will charge you for hosting the data centers accordingly. Whatever maybe, you simply use that servers for hosting your application accordingly. At the end of the day, we need a machine or a server to host my application. In simple words, that is what all we call about, right? Now, this is what is something we call it as, the hosted data center, team. Data center and hosted data center. Think that data center is your kitchen, hosted data center is like your hotel where you go on, order something and eat and come out. Here also, whenever you need the servers, go and order them, they will charge you something. Whenever you don't need them, give them back, whatever they do it, just, they'll take the charge whatever from you accordingly. That is what is something called as hosted data center. Now this is where, team, we are talking about a few things. Now we understood about what are the problems with waterfall. It is taking a longer time for delivery, and application are so clumsy, we cannot easily deploy the applications. Now, when it comes to the agile, with agile, we are able to develop the application faster, but we hear the delivery is not happening still. Delivery is still taking at least a couple of months because every 2 weeks you're adding the new features, but we are not giving this to the end user. We're just testing it in our own centers and we are not delivering to the end user. That is the problem with your, not the problem, I'll say, where it can be an improvement point. You can think about it. Now, think about team. There are few challenges that you need to understand with your uh, the agile model or whatever it is team. So far we have it. So what are all the challenges that we have with agile where we are trying to move on to the DevOps? Because before you go to the DevOps now, you must understand these things. Let's try to understand things accordingly. Think about team infrastructure readiness. As I said, like with agile as a software development lifecycle model, we are able to develop a feature every 2 weeks. That is what I told you clearly. But every 2 weeks you have a target, you need to finish the target accordingly. Let's say that client is giving the requirement every 2 weeks, I'm developing a new feature. Now let's try to understand team. I'm not sure if you are having an idea about how we deliver an application in the organizations. Hope you might be aware of this one. Whenever you say that you deliver an application, basically you have various environments in an organization, correct? Environment is something where you host an application again. Why do we maintain the environments team? Let's say that development environment is where you do all the testing, or developer is playing with the so code, whatever it may be, he's writing it, he's testing it, and also that is what that is called as development environment. Now there is an environment called as QA, quality analysis, means that developer says that source code or development is completed. Before we deliver to the end user team, we always test the code. Or let's say that you buy something, you go to a showroom and you buy it, right? You test there itself, right? End of the day, you test it before you take it to the home also. That is what is. So that is called as testing. Basically, before we give the software to the end user, we want to ensure that the software is working as per the given requirement. Client has given some requirement. Before I give it to him, I want to validate everything is good. Then I'll give it to the end user. That is what is called as quality analysis or testing environment, where we deploy the application. Means you ready, deploy the application to QA to test it. Now you also deploy into pre-prod to ensure that we are all good. Again, multiple testing at the pre-prod, various integration will be tested accordingly. Now finally team, we deliver into the production environment. Production is the environment, means that let's try to understand. Production environment is a production environment is a server. Think that this is a server where my application is running, right? Let's say that when I hit facebook.com, the request goes to the Facebook data center or Facebook server. Now that server where it is running is called as a production environment. People hit the production environment elevers, but before you deliver your application into the production where the end user accessing application, you deploy the same application into multiple environments in order to validate whether it is working expected or not, working as expected or not. This is called as different environments. So you deliver this into various environments before this one. Now question about here is why I'm discussing about these environments is that I'm writing a challenge here which is called as infrastructure readiness, right? As I told, now every 2 weeks we are able to develop a feature, but are we delivering it to the production or are we delivering it to the end user is a question that is what's up. And if we are delivering it, that is good, but we are not delivering is the question with agile. Basically infrastructure readiness is something we are talking about. When I say infrastructure readiness team, nothing but your servers are ready or not to host the application. When I say server is not ready to host the application, what does it mean? Again, right? Think about team, think about it. You are developing the software correctly, that's good. Let's say that you have an iPhone 6 in your hand. That is what you have an iPhone 6, which is a specific hardware, specific capacity you have it for that iPhone 6. Now there is a latest version called as iOS 13 which is in the market right now. Can we install iOS 13 on my iPhone 6? Think about this. If you say your answer is no, the reasons you need to understand here. Why? Because we have developed a new features or new requirements. Software is required more hardware capacity here to host. That is the reason iPhone or Apple has developed a new device itself for hosting the iOS 13. If I deploy the iOS 13 blindly on iPhone 6 hardware, iPhone 6 hardware may not support the iOS 13 features, iOS 13 software features, whatever it has it. Now the hardware starts crumbling or hardware may crash it, or your phone may crash it also. Phone may not work accordingly, right? Now that is the problem when you have it. Means that nothing but you added many features after iPhone 6. iOS 6 was something called as iOS 9 something or iOS 10. Right now we are having iOS 13. So what are the differences between iOS 9 and iOS 13? There are many features introduced, many new software features are introduced. That is where you're having more capacity is required to run. Means that as soon as you keep on increasing the application or software capacity, it requires more a lot of hardware resources, right? Now let me tell you in another words also. Let's say that you still have iOS 13, that's good enough. iOS 13 with iOS, the latest iPhone is running, iPhone 11 or something, whatever it may be. Assume that you keep on opening many applications, means you keep on running the number of applications on the same iOS 13. Let's say that you open 100 applications on the same iPhone 11. Now what happens to your phone again? Your phone gets slower, right? Just think about another scenario here. Your phone gets slower or phone may crash also if you keep on opening it, because in order to process every application when you open it, the hardware capacity also required again to process it. Now that is where we are talking about infrastructure readiness is a bigger question, because developers are interacting with the client. Think about it. Developers are interacting with the client. Client is giving the requirement, which is good. Developers are keep on adding the new features. That's good. But when you're talking about deploying this application into a production environment, who is deploying into production environment? There are some people called as operation people or deployment people. Did you check about whether when I add these new features into the existing servers, is my hardware capable of running these things? Now that is where team we see a gap between the operation team and the developer team here. That is what is the problem basically. Of course, they would have informed, the developer should have informed the operation team to make the hardware changes, but they forgot to implement or they are not doing that basically. That is where by the time you develop your application, the hardware is still at the older level. If you try to deploy it, the application may fail to start on the hardware. Now that is what is called as infrastructure readiness team. Though we have the application ready sometimes, because hardware does not support the application you developed it, we take another 2 to 3 weeks to prepare the hardware, then deploy it. So that delivery is getting delayed. With Agile, we are able to develop the software faster, but we are not able to deliver it at the same pace. That is what is the problem with Agile. In simple words, I call it. Okay. With Agile, we are able to develop it faster. I'm repeating, team. With Agile, we are able to develop the software faster, but the delivery is still delaying. That was the problem with Waterfall. So Waterfall, we had both the problems. Waterfall taking long time to development and then long time to delivery. With Agile, we had a speed in the development, but the delivery is still taking some time, but not as much as Waterfall, but still have considerable amount of time. Though the features are ready, though my product is ready, I'm not able to deliver it to the end user. That is where we are looking for it. The main reason behind this one is that there is a lack of collaboration between your developer team and the operation team to prepare the servers accordingly. Now that is what we call it as infrastructure readiness. Infrastructure readiness is a bigger question here. That is where people are not able to deliver it again. That is what all you need to understand. Well, that is the first reason, team. That is the first challenge with your agile basically that you need to understand. Second thing is called as scalability. Scalability is a general term, team. Nowadays, I think you know that we are talking about on-demand business. When I say on-demand business again, right? Think about it. Amazon announced a big billion day. What happens on the big billion day basically, right? Let's say that there are 1,000 users who are using the Amazon every day, but on a big billion day, there are 10,000 users access the same website because of the offers they do it. Means that, team, think about it. If there are 1,000 requests going to a server, server can handle it good. But if there are 10,000 hit the same request into the same server again, it is going to trouble it, right? Let's say that 1,000 requests hit by one server, which is good only. 10,000 requests hit by the same server, server will crash. Just like we discussed just now, if you open 100 applications at the same time, your iPhone will crash. Similar way, there are instead of 1,000 requests, that is the regular capacity that is expected by the server, but all of a sudden there is more request coming to the server may crash. But what I have to do to resolve this issue is that I need to increase the number of servers. Let's say that one server takes the 10,000 requests. Let me scale up my infrastructure, or let me put another 9 servers, so that 9 servers will handle 9,000. Altogether 10,000 requests I can handle. So how quickly I can scale it up, or how quickly I can add another 9 servers into my production, so that tomorrow on demand, I'm saying on the demand, let's say that tomorrow is a big billion day, I want to create infrastructure today. How quickly I can scale it up infrastructure for me, how quickly I can scale up 9 servers so that tomorrow I'm ready for taking the load. Now similarly, after the big billion day, I want to scale down also, right? That is on-demand business only we are talking about. On-demand business is something we need to do because unnecessarily you should not want to spend the money. That is where people are looking at it. Scalability is possible, but it is a very costlier effort with your agile process still. We are looking for a much simpler, the scalability process. Quality of the product. Sometimes, with agile speed of delivery, people are compromising on testing it, maybe not testing thoroughly and then delivering the production. Production may fail to this one. Limited release windows and release may fail or slip. As I told that, though the application is ready sometime, let's say that in this case, my application is ready, my infrastructure is also ready to host it. But in this case, sometime client says that you cannot deliver it. I give you a maintenance window or I give you a release window. You have to deploy the application in that particular release window only. Means that my application is ready on Monday itself. My infrastructure is also ready on Monday itself, but I'm not able to deliver it to the production because my client does not allow me to do it. He has given a window on Saturday 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. That is the only window I need to follow. During the other time, I cannot deploy my application because bringing or deploying an application will bring down application for some time. The client may not be able to access the application. Now, these are all the things basically. These are all the challenges we still have it to be addressed by your, things we need to take care. That is where team, that is where, and this is one of the biggest problem also. Think about those challenges, and this is also one problem. Most of you might be seeing it. Let me tell you, this is a problem, right? What exactly is this one? Working fine in dev environment, and it's an operation problem now. What exactly this means is that, let's say that I deploy an application in my development environment here. Think that we have different environments, right? Now I deployed my application in development environment. It was working fine. I deployed the application in QA environment. It is also working fine. But when I take the same application and deploy into the production, it stops working. Why? That is called as working fine in dev. It's ops problem. Now ops problem is because in the development environment or QA environment, developer takes care of deployment or developer deploys the application. He uses the application. But whereas deploying in the production will be carried out by a different team altogether, which is called as a deployment team or operation team. They will take the application or developer team will guide it to deploy it. Now they say that this is the application, you take it and deploy it. That operation team takes the application and deploys it. It doesn't work in the production. As soon as it doesn't work it, people start troubleshooting it and they will bring everybody into a call and then they'll talk about it. Finally, we call the developer and say that it is not working. The developer comes up to the call and says a beautiful word called as, it is working absolutely fine in my laptop, not my problem. You go and troubleshoot yourself. That is what he's going to say, right? Now, this is the blame game, we call it basically. People are working about it. This is the problem that you see it in your organizations most of the time. If you are working in a production support team or something, most of the time you hear these words actually. Now, this is what also need to be removed. This because team here, think about it, because we are blaming each other first of all, right? Because developer says that the operation problem, operation is the developer problem. We start blaming it after 2 hours of wasting time. Then we go and sit it, work together, and then finally you fix the problem, right? But here it is a problem, but at the end client is facing the issue for 2 hours. Who is worried about that one, right? That is a problem here. The blame game need to be stopped here. Now we need better things basically to ensure that our client is happy. We need to deliver the application much faster than what we are doing right now. Now that is where team, that is where we talk about something called as DevOps. Okay. Now we talked about waterfall problems about it. We talked about agile. Agile is not a problem. We're still going to follow the agile only. But here something is that with agile there is still challenges are there to improvise it. Now that is where we talk about something called as DevOps is a model. Right now in the market we have something called as DevOps model, which gives the answers for all the discussions what we did it so far, the challenges that you discussed it, the problem that we discussed just before, like working fine in dev and not ops problem. Now that also going to be resolved or not resolved basically, but that should be resolved with your DevOps practices or DevOps model we call it. Now this is what it is, team. Let's discuss about it. We'll discuss about DevOps it. Definitely what is DevOps, you're going to understand it in some time from now onwards. But before we discuss about DevOps, let's try to understand other terminology here first of all, which is called as microservices. Application architecture change into microservices. Physical servers, virtual machines. Now we are using the containerization in the market right now. That is where you talk about Docker and everything. Finally we are using the cloud environment also, right? Again, think about it. What exactly is cloud, team? I'll start from the last point here. We discussed about data center, which is nothing but our own kitchen. That's what I told you, right? it is very difficult for us to set up, difficult to cook it, and difficult to eat it. In order to just eat, I'm using everything. Why should I do it? Similar to that one, hosted is also something which is chargeable. You go to a third party, and then you have to go to the third party and request everything. They will manage everything again. They don't let you do everything, correct? And that is a problem. Now cloud is something, team, you might have correlated by now. So it is like your online food delivery. Sitting at your home, you can choose any of the best restaurants in the city, and you can go for it, and you can order whatever you want it. They will take care of delivering it to your home, and in case of some issues also, they will also take care of maintenance part, some kind of support. Some food is not good, and then they will try to replace it. What are the options, you get it accordingly, right? Now cloud is also something, team, which is a very flexible model, right? Where you can go on, sit at your home, and you can access your entire servers. Means instead of you, David, I think maintenance part is completely taken by the service provider, whatever they want to do it. They will prepare the servers again, still they will give you the access, but sitting at your home or sitting at your location, you can do it. Means wherever you are in the world, you can access your data centers, or you can access your servers to host your application. That is the first point. Now the second point is that cloud is something called as a pay as you go model. In a hosted data center case, team, if you are going and asking the 10 servers for 1 year, they will ask you that, okay, for 1 year, this is the amount that you need to pay for me, then you need to pay that. Let's say that after 6 months, you not using the servers anymore, if you want to get it back to them also, they're not going to pay back, right? Means that in a hotel also, you order something, after you order something, they may not take the order back, you have to pay the bill and you go it. Now that is what is a problem. So in this case of cloud model, team, we say that it is called as a pay as you go model. Means that if I order 10 servers and I use for 1 hour, then I pay for those 10 servers for 1 hour, how much it is. That is what. So it's pay called a simple flexible model, which is going to be your pay as you go model. And then wherever you are in the world, you can simply access your servers and start accessing it account. That is what is called as your cloud in simple words. Think about that. Now that has advantages also, you'll get it accordingly. That's good. Now think about this one is called as containers, right? The container is a big terminology to explain to you. It's going to take a longer time basically, but in simple words, I'll explain it. Now, think about this. This is where we are talking about, right? So here we have a server basically, right? Here we have a server and we are hosting the application like this. Think about this one, team. Means that here, if I take this one, simply in order to host my application, I need the prerequisites such as your OS, right? And then you have your Java, then you have your Tomcat or web server, whatever it may be. Then finally you host your application. Now, whenever I'm talking so far, we deliver application into various environments. Now, this is the prerequisite before you deploy your application. For every server must have it, right? Let's say that every server having this prerequisite, that is what is the thing you have it finally. This is a prerequisite that will be there every day, means whatever it is. This is one time setup that you do it completely. And then finally, when you develop your application, basically we take the application code, which is nothing but your my application, this one. I take this application code, I deliver this one here, and here I'll do it simply, and then finally I deliver into the production. Now here, team, the way of delivery you're thinking about it, you are delivering only the application. That is what is the problem. That is where it is leading some problems in, when you deploy the application in development, it is works fine. The same application is not working in the production. Why? Because see, there are many dependencies, right? The Tomcat is a dependency for running my application. Java is also dependency for running my application. OS is also some kind of a dependency for my application, basically to run it. Now, if I deliver only the application code, how do I maintain the other dependencies, right? Tomcat must be, let's say that in development, developer might have upgraded the Java to 1.6 to 1.8. But whereas in my production, I did not do that. So application fails to start, obviously, in that case. That is what is a problem, right? And again, another case that in my developer machine is the development environment, I went ahead and updated my operating system to the latest patch level accordingly. But in the production, we need some kind of upload where we did not updated the operating system, but the developer has developed using the latest features. He delivered the application again. Because the operating system libraries are missing, the application may not function in your production. There are many dependencies basically when you're delivering an application that you're not carrying out altogether, but you're just delivering the application code. Now, just to define the container definition, team, we're going to discuss containers about more thing in the other session, but the Docker session mostly. Here, the container definition is that, team, instead of instead of delivering only the application code, package everything. Let's like you prepare a .exe file, right? If you want to install MS Office basically, which has MS Access, MS Word, MS Excel, MS Paint, whatever you have it, all the different components of your application bundle as single exe file and given to you, right? You deploy that. Similar to that one, whatever the dependencies that you have it here, application, Tomcat, Java, operating system, everything you prepare as a single bundle, right? That is what you do it. And then finally deliver this bundle. Don't deploy just the application, but deploy entire bundle here. This is what it is, right? If I deploy like this here, if it is working fine, it should work here also, right? If it should work here also, then it must work here also. Means if it is working in development now, it will work in my production also accordingly, right? Now that is what is the definition of a container team. In simple words only I'm explaining right now. We discussed this about more in the Docker session. But here try to understand the container definition here. Container is nothing but an application plus all of its dependencies packaged together is called as a container in simple words. Okay, so this is about a team. This is what is called as container. Okay, simple words. This is how it is a container basically. With this, we'll be able to resolve at least the blame game problem. It works in fine in development and not working in operation side or productions environment. This way, we can ensure that it works exactly the same way in the development and the production also. The containers are the solution, and containers are the lightweight solution right now in the market. We have it. Now, this is what it is team here. This is how we do to application development or application deployment strategies are getting changes accordingly. Now this is called as your containers in the world. What right now we are working on it. It is lightweight and it is faster to deliver the containers also because of their lightweight nature. How they are lightweight and everything we're going to talk about it, but later in the container session or Docker session we're going to talk about it. Here just on the top level view, just what you need to think about it. Now team, here we are talking about something called as microservices. Microservices also something we need to understand here team. Think that in earlier where I told you like here, right? When we hosted our application in the middle tier here or tier 2, let's say that there is one application called as bank application inside which I said like debit card, credit card, loan, and mutual fund. There are different components basically available, right? Now let's say that one server is hosting everything. Let me take another pane here. Let's say that the bank application is hosted on a single server. Let's say that this is my bank, right? This is my bank. Inside the bank application, I have like credit card section. Let's say that debit card, credit card, we have it, and you have mutual fund section, whatever it may be, and then let's say that loan section, you have it. Like there are different components of your application are deployed into a single server again here. This is a single server. Think about it. This is what is the problem. Now we are further decoupling the architecture team, right? In NTR architecture, we separated the database and client and middle components separately. But here we are talking about breaking the application into multiple smaller pieces. What I mean to say here is team, simply try to understand, right? There are 100 customers who are accessing my bank application right now. Just think about a scenario, okay? There are 100 customers who are accessing the banking website or they're doing the internet banking transaction, whatever it may be, out of which 90 customers are using the debit card section where they are checking their debit card statement or performing something accordingly, right? Now there are 10 users who are accessing the credit card section, right? 90 to 10 ratio I'm talking about it. Now let's say that the credit card section all of a sudden had a problem. The credit card section, whatever the credit card transaction that you are doing it, they were not happening it properly, means that credit card section has a problem. Right now this issue has been reported to the bank, so the bank has started working on it. They fixed it. Okay, they fixed the code on the development environment. Now finally they have to deliver this to the production because end user is accessing the production environment. Now team, if I want to deliver this fixed code of credit card, how do I deliver it here is that I will uninstall all this application code which has in debit card, credit card, because that's a single bundle, right? Single bundle has every feature here. Now, if I want to redeploy the latest code, I will remove the entire code and I'll redeploy the new code. That is what I'll do it. Now, in this case team, because there are 90 customers who are not at all using the credit card, they are still facing a downtime or they are not able to access application. They are not worried about credit card, but they're still getting some problem there. Now, why that problem should be there for the debit card? How do I maintain the no downtime for that 90 customers, because that is a huge amount of customers who are doing it, and credit card section anyway, people who wants to use it, they can wait for some time, right? Now, how do I separate out this one, or how do I ensure that my debit card users or other users are not facing any issues while I'm deploying it? Now, the simple answer is that, team, you need to break this into multiple pieces again. Instead of hosting this one into a single server, let's say that debit card is a separate module or separate server, right? Like that debit card app separately, I develop it, right? I deploy into a separate server basically. And let's say that credit card is something, right? Credit card, a credit app, I separate out. Earlier, every application, one application, multiple features. Now every feature is called as a different application now, like that you can think about it. Mutual fund app, something like that, I develop it, and loan app, I'll develop something like this. So every piece is separated as a separate application, and they can be hosted in a different server. Let's say that earlier I use a single Tomcat server or a web server to host it. Now here debit card section, I can host it in Tomcat or a web server, think about it. Now here I can host my credit card section into a JBoss server. This is also kind of a server where we can host it. Think about it. Now mutual fund, I can section open into a Nginx web server. Now finally, I can host this one into a different, basically, let's say that Apache. So this is how, team, there are two different servers or different altogether servers are hosted separately. Now, team, in this case, since I deployed this application separately, I can only uninstall this application. I can reinstall this application after fixing the code. Meanwhile, other users are still will be able to access my application without any issues. Now, this each individual piece, team, here called as microservice. Okay, microservice is nothing but further decoupling your application components to smaller pieces and host them in a separate application, or host them in a different servers altogether. Internally, they will communicate with each other. In the front end, you may see the same application, but in the back end where they hosted are in a different servers, so that you can easily work on, because breaking them into sub pieces now becomes a lightweight more. Application code is lightweight, easy to troubleshoot it with a credit card section or whatever it may be. I don't need to worry about all other things accordingly, right? Easy to troubleshoot, easy to deploy. So the more lightweight you are, the more faster you move, right? That is what is something you can understand it. The heavier you are, that is the, it is takes some time to install it. The more lightweight you are, it takes that, the quick installation part also takes care of it. Deployment can be done quickly if you have this kind of architecture. So that is the reason, team, nowadays people are talking about microservices more about it, or be breaking your application into smaller processes, which becomes lightweight, easy to move, easy to troubleshoot. There are many advantages also comes into the picture accordingly. Now, in simple words, team, this is called as microservices. When you develop your application into bits and pieces and host them as different services in the backend. In the front end, you may see the single application as it is, but in the backend, they are all hosted as a different services together. Now, this is called as your microservice architecture, team. In simple words, we call it. This is how you can think about how do I host my application in real world. This is what the architectural changes coming into the picture. With DevOps, we want to, the goal of the DevOps team, try to understand the agile world goal was to, at the end of the day, the goal is same thing. We have to deliver our application into the production faster. That is what is the end goal for every model which you are trying to achieve it. With waterfall, it takes 6 months. With agile, we are taking 2 months. Now with DevOps, we are then to deliver it as soon as it is ready. For that, we want to change our architecture also, just to make sure that we are able to deliver it faster. When you are lightweight like microservices, you'll be able to deliver it faster. And you want to deploy it also, containers are the best fit for your deployment of microservices, easily hostable on the containers, and everything can be done. Similarly, it is easy to troubleshoot everything. So the more lightweight you are, the more faster deployment. And with the containerization, we can also bring in a lot of auto healing features, automatically fix the issues, and all these things comes into the picture accordingly. Now, this is what is called as your microservice architecture and containers in cloud, team, which helps us move our application code into the market faster, so that as soon as it is ready, I can do it. And that is what is the DevOps says it for you, or you need to implement these things to ensure that you are able to deliver your software into the market faster. That is what all we are expecting. Okay. Now, this is what all about it, team. Think about this. Now, finally, let's discuss about what DevOps is telling us to achieve these things. And that we need to change the architectural changes to achieve the DevOps. Along with that, what exactly DevOps is telling you, we need to understand that stuff accordingly. Okay. So let's move on here, team. Discuss about it. Now, we should discuss about what exactly is DevOps. Think about this. Now, maybe, team, a lot of people may have a lot of questions, basically, whether it is a culture or it's a job title or it's team, basically, or it's a way of organizing, or it's way of thinking. Now, what exactly is DevOps team? If you try to understand the definition of a DevOps, now this is what we like it mostly, right? Which is called as your DevOps is a reorg, not a new team to hire. What I mean to say here is team that we already have good teams in our organization. Develop team is a very good team. There's who always works on features and they will keep on doing it. Operation team is that is always ensuring that application is good in the production. They're able to deploy the application. Now the only problem team, because of the lack of communication between these guys, because developer team doesn't know who is the operation team, and operation team doesn't know who is the developer for the same application. You are working on a same project, you are working towards the same goal to deliver application into the market faster, but you don't know each other. Now when you don't know each other team, you always tend to do the blame games and all these things. That is the reason DevOps says that the first goal of DevOps is that reorg. When I say reorg, ensure that all the teams who works towards a single project, whether it can be a development team, operation team, database teams, middleware teams, there are a number of teams in the organizations. Everybody should work as a single team. Earlier, everything is working on silo. Silo means development team used to work on silo. They will say that, okay, my development is over. The ball passed on to the operation team. Ball is paused. Means development team no more involved in the operation team. They don't care about it. So this is what is right. This is what is happening basically. Now that is the reason DevOps says that you reorg everybody into a single team. Now, when you are working in a single team, you are responsible to communicate with everybody and ensure that application is developing with a good way and then delivering also to the market. That is the reason we say that DevOps is reorg. It's not a new team to hire. It's not a new people to work on it. Everybody is the same people who are working on it. We just reorg it. Now there are more definitions, team, the technical definitions if you want to look at it. DevOps is agile IT operation delivery required to match the cadence of agile IT development. What exactly this means is that now with agile team, we understood that there was a sprint model or an iterative model. Every 2 weeks, the developers are able to develop a new feature and deliver it. Not deliver it basically, they're able to show the results to the client. Now the problem is that we discussed already, the development team is involved with the client. They are getting the new requirements, they keep on work, but whereas the operation team nowhere aware of what exactly development team is doing it. Now this way, right, because once these guys are done, they're going to the operation team and saying that this is needed. Now the operation requesting more time to deliver it. Now there is a mismatch is happening there basically. So what we are telling here is that DevOps is agile IT operations delivery. We are still going to follow the agile. Agile was developed or introduced only the development organization earlier. Now we are trying to introduce this agile into the operation side also, so that everybody participates in the single sprint meeting and operation people know what exactly is happening on the development side. Similarly, the development people also can guide operation people saying that, okay, this is what is coming up. For this one, you need to prepare your infrastructure ready. So when you are taking this one, that is the reason we say that DevOps is agile IT operations, right? Bring the agile into the operation side so that everybody participates in the sprint meeting and they will discuss everything as a single team and they will achieve the goal accordingly. That is what is a technical definition, which I call it. But there is one more definition here. DevOps is a philosophy of unifying development and operations. Don't think like as a DevOps engineer, you must do the development also. No, it is that developers still do the development, operations still do the operations. Only thing is that we want to unify these people, right? Unify the development team and operation team at the culture level, practice level, and the tools level also, to achieve the accelerated and more frequent deployment changes to the production. That is the end goal I'm talking about, right? Always we want to deliver your product into the market faster. So in order to achieve that one, whatever is necessary, do it. That's what DevOps is. It first of all, reorg everybody and make use of the latest tools such as microservices and containers to make sure that you are able to deliver it faster and develop faster. Everything can be happening accordingly. Again, DevOps is a software engineering culture and practice that unifying software development and software operations. It aims at the shorter deployment cycles, more dependable releases in close alignment with the business objectives. This is more of business definition, so don't worry about it. This is how team you can think about the DevOps. Basically, you can understand. So technically, again, if you think about DevOps, DevOps is first a culture of collaboration between developers and operations. This is the first goal of your DevOps basically, collaborate between all the teams, or every team should work as a single team here, not in a different styles. That is what is something. Culture has given scope for set of practices. Of course, when you have different talent in a single team or a single group, people tend to share the things and they will enhance more in the team. Team efficiency will become automatically increased. That is what is something we are expecting here. So DevOps is a revolutionary movement by practitioners for practitioners, we call it. Of course, this was started by people who are already working in organization, and for the people who are already working it. That is why I say that it is by the practitioners for the practitioners. That's about it. Now, finally, if I want to discuss the goals of your agile, the DevOps basically, simply team try to understand the goal of the development, because we're still working on the development and operation phases. The goal of the development team is to deliver the features into the hands of the customer as quickly as possible. So the developer goal is always speed. Developer thinks that I need to deliver, I need to develop the software faster. Now developing the software does not help much, but it's dependent on the delivery also, right? And where the operation people come into the picture, the goal of the operation team is to maintain the stability of the system and minimize the downtime, right? There is a speed, that doesn't mean that you need to fall every time you pick up a speed, right? So you should not fall down. Once you deliver it, ensure that the operation team is ensuring that the servers are always available, application you deployed is running successfully on the system, and end user is able to access the application successfully, right? So Facebook is ensuring that you're able to access the facebook.com at any time point of time. That is nothing but the operation people are ensuring that the application is available on a server so that you could access it, right? That is what is something. The goal of your operation team is that maintain the stability of the application. Means the application should be stable at any point of time I access it, it should be accessible, should not give a downtime to the end user. That is what we call it. So here team with the DevOps, what we are expecting is that stability and speed of delivery. That is what is something. With Agile, we are able to speed up the development, but here we are expecting the speed on the both sides. Speed of the development and speed of the delivery also need to be achieved. Along with that, I want to achieve the stability in the delivery part. Delivery part is dependent on two things: speed and stability is required for the delivery. That is what we're telling about it. Time to market, again I'm talking about it. The end goal is that again time to market need to be very reduced. As soon as the feature is ready, let's say that within 2 weeks I was able to develop a feature, do not wait for that to be delivered into the production. As soon as it is ready, deliver it into the production. That is what all we are expecting it accordingly, right? And after that one team, no production failures, means that of course we are all doing years and years, we still tend to fail sometime, definitely. That's when you learn something also, learn from the mistakes. We are not 100% perfect at all the time for sure. We tend to fail, but ensure that no production failures are there. Ensure, I'm not saying that you can do it 100%. Maybe you fail for a couple of times, that's okay. Immediate recovery. If you fail also, how quickly you can recover it from that issue is the question. So fail it. There is nothing wrong in failing it always, nothing wrong to fail, because we are not perfect all the time. 100%. So if you fail, how quickly bounce back, how quickly you can recover from the situation you are in. Now that is what is something for the applications also works team. Make you have to work on it accordingly. If you fail the deployment, ensure that you revoke it to the previous version so that end user does not face issues again. That is what it is we need. Finally team, we call it as there is no wall in DevOps culture. Try to understand that every team member is now called as a DevOps engineer, not anymore a developer separate, a QA engineer separate, or a middleware engineer separate, or a database engineer separate. No, we are not. They are still having their own role, right? But at the end of the day, these are all one team, which is called as the DevOps team, and every title is called as DevOps engineer only. The subcategory comes into there. DevOps engineer is the top level role name, but under the subcategory, you may be working as a database engineer, or you may be working as a middleware engineer, you may be working as a developer. So the roles remain same thing, the title is getting changed only. If you are a developer, you still work on the development only, but you call it as a DevOps engineer. If you are a database engineer, you still work on the database section only, but you still call it as a DevOps engineer. But so right, the roles and responsibilities are there, but the title is called as DevOps engineer. And the one thing is that we are all working in a team. That's the reason we call it as a DevOps team, and you are a DevOps engineer basically. That is what all you need to understand. No culture and DevOps, there is no gaps, there is no wall inside the cultures. You have to discuss all together. So this is what is called as DevOps team. One final visualization here. With waterfall, one thing we design once, we code it, test and deploy once in 6 months you deploy it and deliver it. With agile, we say that design code test, design code test, design code test, and you deliver it once. Again, that is what is something we are doing it. But here DevOps is something says that design, code, test, deploy it or deliver it. Design, code, test, deliver it. Design, code, test, deliver it. So don't wait for all things to be accumulated. As soon as the feature is ready, deliver it to the market. That is what is the expectation of DevOps. Now this is what is called as team. This is simply we call it as DevOps. Basically, try to think about it. Now this is all about it, the DevOps. Okay. So this is just an introduction to the DevOps team. I hope you're all clear now what exactly is DevOps and why do we need the DevOps actually. So this is just an introduction part. Try to make you understand from the basics, like starting from a server just to ensure that what is server, what exactly we do it, and what exactly are the different software development lifecycle models for following the software engineering definition. And the end of the day, keep one thing in mind, team. I'm telling you very clearly again and again, one thing in mind, that every IT organization goal is to maintain or follow something called as software engineering definition. Develop a software, operate it, and maintain it, right? Make it operatable, and then make sure that you are maintaining the software accordingly to support things accordingly. Now, in order to achieve that, over the years, we are following waterfall. Takes 6 months time to deliver it. Agile takes 2 months to deliver it. Now with DevOps, we are seeing that as soon as it is ready, deliver it. Don't wait for something and ensure that you are delivering it, but without a failure again. That is what DevOps tells you. In order to achieve the things over the years, we keep on changing our architectures and tools and accordingly to ensure that we are making the things faster and able to deliver it faster. That's all we are expecting, team. This is all about it. So this is where I'll stop for a minute, right? That's all about the basic DevOps discussion that we want to have it, and you must have some idea now. You can follow the video one more time if you have any clarities required accordingly. But this is how we simply actually work on the thing called as DevOps model. Okay, so with this team, I'll stop with something called as what is DevOps and introduction to DevOps, why DevOps is required, what is DevOps and all that stuff. We can stop there, and this is what the introduction part only. Now, the next thing is that team, we need to start working on the agenda that we displayed earlier, whatever the agenda that we are talking about it for this course. I think what we'll be covering all these tools, whatever we're talking about here, right? So Docker containerization, everything we're going to discuss about the tools such as Git. In order to work on those tools, team, try to understand in order to work on the tools and technology. So try to understand here what exactly we're going to work on. I think we just given already, but let's say that we start from the developer standpoint, how the developer going to save the source code into a system. Then we take a saved source code and all these things. So once the source code is available, this is called as source code management tool team, where the developer saves the source code. Nothing but your application development, whatever the programming he does it, he will save everything into a tool called as a source code management tool. That is what is called as Git. Developer always saves it there only. So in order to track the versions and everything, you will do that. Once the source code is available, what we do it is something we need to deliver this into various environments. Final goal is production, but we need deliver. How do I deliver it? Basically is the source code is a combination of multiple files team. Let's say that a number of Java files or HTML files or CSS files, whatever you have it accordingly. We cannot deliver the source code directly into the various environments. Let me tell you a simple example, right? Whenever you install a VLC media player, simple words, do you take the source code or you take an executable file and deploy it? We simply take an executable file like .exe or something called as file and you run it, right? So it becomes installable on your system. Similar to that one team means that VLC media player is also an application which is developed by somebody. Somebody has written some code, various files. They converted the entire source code into a single executable file and they gave you the executable file, you're able to deploy it. So here also team, once we done that one, we use something called as Maven. I'm talking about the Java application for our course intended completely. We're going to use a Maven for build the code. Build code, basically we call it. Build code is that prepare executable, right? This is what we can think about. Now, after this one, we use Jenkins for performing the CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery parts. We didn't discuss about it. After this one, we're going to talk about Ansible for preparing your infrastructure or configuration management and everything. Now, after that, we're going to discuss about containerization. Why do we need containerization and all those things? Just now we understood what is container. It avoids the blame game of, a blame game that is happening right now in the market. That is helpful for it. And along with that, containers also brings in a lot of things. Along with that, we can also discuss about container orchestration, right? This is Docker is called as containerization. Containerization, we call it. Now, this is called as container orchestration. We need it. Why do we need that orchestration? Now, for container orchestration team, we're going to use something called as Docker Swarm or Kubernetes, basically. A Kube, we call it. These are the tools. Finally, we're going to discuss about once we assume that we deployed our application as containerized application, assume that we deployed our application in the production, we need to go into the maintenance mode, where we're going to discuss about something called as monitoring, right? Monitoring, where we discuss about called as Nagios tool, if time permits there. And then finally, we're going to take up logging also. We'll discuss about the maintenance parts comes into this one. These two comes under the maintenance. Let me put it to blue color here, right? These tools falls under the operations phase. Let me put it to red color. This is very, very thing. Now the Git is falls under here, the development phase. This is what we can think about. And the development side team, as a developer, we're not going to learn the source code, writing the Java code and everything. That is not our duty. We just understand that how developer saves the code on a source code management. That is what is the goal here for this course, at least. After that, we need to learn how to deliver the source code into various environments using all these tools accordingly. Once assume that you deployed your application into the production, we're going to talk about something called as maintenance, where we include something called as Splunk and Nagios as per the timelines we have it. We'll discuss about all these tools team. Just to let me be very clear here, we're not going to deep dive of everything. We're just going to give you an introduction part to everybody most of the time, because these are all the tools that are very, very big tools basically, and we have around 10 hours time from now to discuss all these 10 tools. So every tool we will discuss around 1 or 1.5 hours mostly. We'll try to understand what this tool about it, how to work with that tool. But if you want to learn more deep dive onto it, we need to go for the next level course, which will be a DevOps professional course, where we'll be offering more content around it accordingly. So this is just an introduction part team. This is what we're going to do it. But before we do this one, in order to learn any of this tool, basically we need a server, or we need a machine, basic machine with an operating system. So we're going to practice all these tools on the Linux operating system. I'm telling you, the Linux operating system will be Ubuntu. Because I want to install Git and I need to practice the Git commands. I need to install that on a Ubuntu machine. Similarly, Maven, similarly Jenkins, similarly Ansible. Every tool that we're going to install it on a system or an operating system called as Linux, and we're going to practice all the commands on the Linux itself. Okay, that is the reason, team. That is the reason basically we're going to learn now. First of all, how do I prepare my EC2 or Ubuntu server? That is where we talk about AWS cloud. I think we have given you the guide to create your accounts, AWS accounts. You must create them to practice it. Again, as we said at the first, right? If you are comfortable, or if you are having your local laptop where you can set up a virtual box, you might have understood by now, right? This is the virtualization I talked about it. You can create your own, local machine like Windows machine. If you have it, you can install a virtual box and you can set up your local Ubuntu also. We are absolutely fine what you are working on, but our practice, we are, just most of the time it is most of the people may not have their own laptops or something. That is the reason we are asking you to create AWS account, which will be a free account only. You will not be charged anything for the services, the service we're going to use it there. AWS offers something called as free tier account, where you can start using an Ubuntu server for free for complete 1 month or 2 months also. It is a free tier is for 1 year account basically, but it is like based on the hours we do it in the 1 month, it is going to charge you maybe. But for now, what our practice, we are going to use completely the free resources from the AWS cloud. So that is all about it, team. So I'm going to walk you through now. Okay, and I'll take all of your questions at the last, team. But before that we do it, I'm going to walk you through now to how to create a Ubuntu server in a Amazon cloud. That is what it is, we call it as. Here it is, team. You can go for this aws.amazon.com. This is what it is. You can think about it. So let me show you this. Maybe this is the best one. Okay, now this is the page, team, that you would see it actually, right? Now, if you have already created an account, you can, you can simply say that sign into the console. If you have not created an account, basically, or still click on this sign into the console option, where it will ask you to create an account, or if you're already having an account, ensure that you're always a root user team. Don't go for IAM user, that is not the one. We always use a root user only. And if you already have an account, you simply log into it. If you don't have an account team, please do create an account with the guide that we give it to you. Follow the guide to create your account accordingly. But once you have created your account, right, we can simply log into the account of your creator. And sometimes team, if you create it today, it might take 24 hours to activate it. So you must have to wait that. Please keep in that mind. Okay. So ensure that you create it accordingly and wait for 24 hours. After that only you can create some server in your AWS account. Just a warning on the top hand. So here team, I have an account ready, my own account, which I'm using it for long now. So let's see that this is the account I'm using it, and I'm logging into my account. So once you log into your account team, this is what the console that you see it normally. Still loading it, just a minute. So here it is, right? So this is the default console that you would see it once you log into your account always. That is what all you think about it. Now once you have this is Sun team, now here we need to understand something, that how you need to create a Linux machine, and then how you can log into that particular machine is what you need to understand. So let's proceed here, and let me show you how to create a Linux instance. We call it, we in AWS terminology we call that as EC2 instance, Elastic Compute Cloud. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. So let me show you that team. AWS offers variety of services, in which server is one of the service basically. So you can click on the services on the top, that will display the next page basically. Under that there is a section called as compute, right? The first section which you wrote, there is something called as EC2 below it. EC2 is a service that we're going to use it from the AWS, where which will allow us to create a server of your own type of operating system and everything. Click on the EC2 here, right? So click on the EC2 team, where you can see that there are various options are available here. Ensure that you do it. So before we go that team, basically try to understand, we need to have some settings need to be taken care. I mean, because team, try to understand this virtual machine, what you're going to create it is in an AWS data center, and then you are going to access it through the internet, right? By default, your connection to the server or connection to the EC2 instance should be accepted, for which there is a firewall set up by the AWS. They will not allow any connections to the server by default. So we need to enable all the connections before you connecting to the server. Okay, before even we create to this one, we can do this one accordingly, or let's create this one. I'll tell you how do you connect to the server accordingly. Okay, so here it is team. Click on the launch instance basically to create a server. Okay, Ubuntu is something we're going to choose in the next step. Click on the launch instance first of all. So it will take you to the next page, right, where it will ask you like what exactly is you're looking for, right? Let's say that there is something called as Ubuntu 2004 or Ubuntu 1804, kind of different types of servers team you have it. Look at this, there are many things available. But here, as we said that all our course tools, we are going to work on Ubuntu server. And I request everybody to work on Ubuntu 1804 only, which is a specific version we are taking about it. So there are some instruction maybe goes into the specific version, so you have to choose it according. So everybody, I request you to choose Ubuntu 1804 always. Select this one, right? And team, here one thing very important, like whenever you're purchasing a laptop, you look for how much CPU, how much RAM, how much disk. That is something you choose it for, based on that you will get charged accordingly, right? Here also the same thing team. AWS offers the instance which is a free tier instance. You can see that the free tier eligible one, which offers only one CPU and then 1 GB memory, which is free for us. Means if you choose any other than this one, it will be chargeable, straightforward. So be careful about it. Choose always only the free tier eligible tag is available. You must choose that only. Okay. After you select this one team, configure instance details, the next one. Need not to change anything here. Go to the next page again, add storage. This is where you see the disk space or hard disk of your system, which is of 8 GB, which is again good enough for us. Do not increase. If you increase it, it will chargeable. So don't do that one. Here it is, 8 GB is default. I'm leaving it. Add tags, right? Here it is, something you do it. Now here team, think about it. The next step is very important. Nothing required on the fifth step here. Add tags is not required. Just leave it as it is. No changes required. The next step is something called as configure security group. Now this is very, very important team here is that you must choose, create a security group or choose an existing one, because assume that you do not have one team. Let me show you that you can create a new one here. Let's say that I'm naming this one is called as du demo. I'll do it. This is the name, and you can name it anything team, that's okay. You can name it whatever you want it. You can name it here also. And this is the security group name team, which I'm doing it, DevOps University demo, whatever you think about it. Now here team, there is by default, there are some rules it will ask you to set it up. By default, there is an SSH rule, which allows us to connect it. Along with that, whatever the settings I'm doing it, please follow you also, so that it will be easy for you to do it. Means if tomorrow, if you want to access it, you have to do it. Add rule, and then say that here all traffic. This is what all you need to do. These are the two rules team. By default, SSH will be available. Add another rule which is called as all traffic for the security group you are creating it. And here under the source, check it anywhere. For both the rules here, check it anywhere. That is what is something which is required again. Ensure that you do these two settings appropriately. Then only we'll be able to log into our server accordingly. Ensure that you're doing it accordingly. Okay. Then finally, you say that review and launch. You can review the settings one more time if you look at. Ensure that these settings are available team. This is very, very important for us to access anything. And finally, say that launch. Now launch is where team, it will ask you that. Ensure that team, whenever you log into your laptop, what it asks us basically is, right? What it asks the team means, I'm not sure if you ever connected to a remote system. Basically, in order to connect to a remote system, from my laptop now, I need to connect to the AWS instance. So I need the IP address of that machine, and a username is required, right? And a password is required. Now this is what it is team. Think about that. The default username for the server that we are creating, which is provided by the AWS only, you need not to worry about it, which is called as Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the default username that you will get it when you are taking an Ubuntu operating system. That is a default username that's created automatically. So you can use this as a username. And what is a password? Password is nothing but this one team. Here you show that the existing key pair or something like this. Here team, you need to create a new key pair. From this one, ensure that you select a new key pair. And here the key pair name is something, you say that whatever it is again, du demo. Here I say that download key pair. Now this key pair is nothing but your password team. Think that the downloaded file, which is called as du demo, show in folder, there is a file that gets downloaded which is called as du demo. This is nothing but your password. Think about this team. Ensure that this is nothing about password. You need to use this to log in. How we use that one, I'm going to show you, but ensure that you understand this process accordingly, right? Now this is the thing team. You can give it any name of your choice. This one again, not necessary as this name, but this is a standard name. You have to use it. Now you have a username and password team. Once you create the server, now it is going to generate an IP address automatically for us. So we're going to use that IP address to connect to the server. Okay. So once you this one team go below, then there is something called as launch instance. Click on the launch instance here. Once you have this one team, your instances are now launching. You can see that message. If you go below on the right hand side corner bottom, you have something called as view instances. Okay. When you say view instances here, there is, I have one server already ready before that one, but here one server which we are creating right now, which is in a pending state. Now here team, once the server is in a running state, we can go ahead and access this particular server, or we can log into this particular server, right? Try to understand team. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of how do you log into a machine, basically. In order to log into a Windows machine team, remote Windows machine, I just give an example here because most of you are familiar with the Windows sometimes, right? So there is something called as RDP. Now, what do you use for RDP team? RDP is something called as remote desktop protocol, using which from your laptop you can connect to another Windows machine wherever it is maybe, and simply use this one, right? Here it will ask you the computer name, whatever it is, and if you go this one, they will ask you like username and password, everything it is going to ask you. So you're going to enter the IP address of the machine, you're going to enter the username, and you're going to enter the password. Then you say connect, so that you will be able to log into the remote Windows machine, right? That is a Windows machine basically that you need to have it. But here we are connecting to a Linux machine. For connecting to a Linux machine, this is not going to help it. So similar to the remote desktop connection protocol, we have something called as SSH protocol, secure shell protocol basically. So here team, to connect, right? I'm telling you to connect to a remote, let's say that remote Linux machine, right? We need to have a protocol basically that we use something called as, we use SSH protocol, right? How do I use this SSH protocol team? There are something called as SSH clients. We have it. Client is nothing but a software again, just like, you know, remote desktop protocol is a window that is default with your Windows machines. Similar to that one, there are many tools or many bit client softwares we have it to use the SSH protocol, right? SSH clients team, there are many SSH clients available in the market. The one which we're going to use today is called as Git Bash. Git Bash is one of the client, SSH client, which is easy for us to use it accordingly. But there are people who use many things like Putty, right? Or let's say that Secure CRT. There are many tools available in the market like Mobile Extreme. So I'm just giving an example here. Mobile Extreme, you have it. Even your command line team, if you're using Windows 10, right? Windows 10 operating system allows this SSH client by default. So you can go for a CMD on this your Windows machine also to connect it accordingly. But in our case team, I'm highlighting this one. Everybody, I recommend to use this one because this is the best tool to work with on the Git side, on the SSH side for connecting to the remote target systems. So I request everybody to install this Git Bash. Git Bash is a client team, SSH client I'm using it. I'm gonna install, or we need to install on our machine accordingly to connect to this one. How do I install this one? I don't think so I need to tell you clearly, but I'll show you it. Go to the Google and then say that download Git Bash. This is a software that you can do it. Okay, there's something called as Git SCM downloads. Click on this one. Now you will go to this page called as gitscm.com downloads. Okay, this is the page where you can see that if you're using Windows, you can use the Windows, but if you're using Mac OS team, you do not need to install. I think Mac terminal can be used as a SSH client by default. It's up to you, but if you still want to install on the Git Bash on your Windows Mac system also, you can use the installation instruction here accordingly. But my system is Windows team. I'm going to use it Windows here. Here I'm using the Windows. Most of you might be using the Windows only. It is going to download a file, which is an exe file basically. You can see that it is actually downloading it. Control J. So here it is team, Git Bash is being downloading onto your system basically. Let me see that if it is available in my system. I'm just checking team, if it is already available, I'm going to cancel it. Okay, there is one thing which is already available on my system team, which I'm going to cancel the download just to speed up it. So just you can download it. Once you download it, basically it is going to show this file on your system, like which is I selected right now on my system. Git 2.2.6 something, whatever it may be. Once you have this exe file downloaded team, just double click on this one. It will prompt for your installation process. Git Bash. See this? This is the screen that you would actually see it on your screen once you double click on that one. Next, say next. Don't change any settings team. Just go with the next options accordingly. Once you go for the next, just click on next. I'm not changing any default options, right? Finally, you have something called as install. Just click on the install. You can see that it is doing actually ssh.exe something. I already have installed on my machine team, so I'm not going to reinstall it again. I'm telling you, because if you click on install, it is going to install it successfully. That is all it is going to do it. Since my system already have installed it, I'm not using it right now. Let's say that I'm canceling this one. Yes, I'll show you once it is installed on your Windows machine. Go to a search bar and type something called as Git Bash, right? This is the application that you installed actually. So you can simply open this out. This is like a command line terminal team. This is a command line terminal. I'm telling you, you have to do this. This is a command line. This can be acting as a SSH client. Right? You can see that SSH command works out for me. So this is how think team. You can see that SSH is a protocol. Now I can type my SSH command to log into this one. As we said before, to work with Linux, there is a command line. You need to know the basic Linux commands appropriately. Then only comfortable it. If you are not comfortable, please try learning the basic Linux. Then you can proceed with the course accordingly, or whatever the things we are going to practice it. Everything we're going to work on the command line. no GUI, no nothing as it is. Everything is a command line here. For everything, you need to run a command. Even to create a directory, create a file, delete something, whatever, everything we're gonna run the commands. That is something team, but how do I connect this? On my SSH client is ready. Now the question is that how do I connect to my system, right? Coming back to the console team. Okay, my server is ready right now. Think that my Ubuntu server is ready. There is an IPv4 address, or let's say that if you select this one team, at the bottom on the right hand side, ensure that you select the server. Bottom side that you see something called as public DNS or public IP. Basically we must use the public IP or public DNS, both are fine. Copy the public IP. This is what it is, I'm copying it. This is 3.133.12.61 something. This is what it is team, we're going to use it. As I said, like we need an IP address, right? This is what it is, you're doing it right now. This is the details team, I have it. Now how do I connect to my system is a question. If I have this one, let's say that I'm going to use a command here using SSH client. Inside the SSH client, I'm going to use it. SSH hyphen I is something called as identity. Then you must provide the file, which is a password file, which is this one. Provide this one, and finally do the Ubuntu user, whatever the username you have it, at the rate, and you must give your public IP address. This is the syntax team. This is the syntax that you need to follow. For every time you connect to the particular server, you must do this one, whatever it is. Let's say that I'm going to take this command and I'm going to type it here. It is going to throw me an error for sure. I'm going to tell about it, what it is. Okay, say yes, it is telling you. To team here, you see this basically warning, it is already giving you identity file du-demo.pem is not accessible. So it is not going to throw me, or it is going to give me an error like this. So you must know where this file is exists, right? Is it available in my current directory, right? Where exactly this file is available team? Look at this, I'm in a folder called as C users Nareshwar, right? But where exactly the file is available? The file is available under the downloads, right? If you take a copy of this one here and cd, not this one, right? So let me show you this one team, where exactly this is. So let me go here, right? C users Nareshwar and say downloads. Now this is the path team. You can see that this is where the file is exist. So you must go to the path where the file is exist. Be careful about this one. Before you run SSH command, always cd to the directory where the file is exist. Okay, fine, it is still that cd c, I'll do a team. This is how you can do it. And cd users, right? Nareshwar, and I'm saying that downloads is something I'm going over it. Now you can see that we are inside the folder called as downloads. Now if I want to list team in my Linux, I'll do something called as ls-l. Now you would see all the files, whatever you're seeing on the UI part, here also you see it. Now there should be something called as du-demo.pem here. This is the file available, right? Now once you see this file team, once you see that you are inside this particular folder, right, then you can simply go here, right? The same command which you ran it earlier, which is ssh command, ssh hyphen I du-demo.pem ubuntu at the rate so and so, and then just enter it. We are just connecting to the target system team. You can see that now I logged in successfully to my EC2 instance here, just to show you that this is an Ubuntu operating system. Here I'll do it right here. You can see this team cat etc os release. These are all the Linux commands team, you must be aware of it. Cat is a command. Now you can see that we are choosing an Ubuntu operating system. Don't expect that like your Windows Ubuntu will have a UI mode. No, it is not the UI mode, it is a command line mode always. It is like working on your command prompt. So you have to work on this terminal only to work with everything accordingly. Whatever the tools we're going to install it, everything we're going to work on this one. Okay. Now this is how team you can simply understand about the things. Now we are successfully logged into our Ubuntu server. Now this is all about a team. How do you do it? How do you create an EC2 instance or Ubuntu server in AWS, and how do I connect to it? Once I connected here, we're gonna start working on this instance by installing our tools such as installing Git, installing everything. Now I'll give you all the instruction team to install everything, so you must install it. And one request before you do anything, after you log into this one, this is like log into a normal user. In order to install something on your Windows, you might require sometimes administrator privileges. So here also we call that as a root user, nothing but an administrator in your Linux. So we switch to the root user, like say that sudo or sudo su hyphen. Now you can see that the root user is that. Whenever you install something, team, ensure that you switch to the root user and then install the stuff accordingly. I'm not proceeding with the installation part here, but I'm just telling you that this is all we're gonna do it. Whenever you work on team, always work with the root user for our labs itself so that you will not face any issues accordingly. So this is how team you're gonna install. I mean, you're gonna set up your server and you're ready with the server by tomorrow, maybe to practice your things accordingly. But again, I request while I'm demoing or while I'm teaching some concept, do not practice along with me. You can practice it after the session by looking at the videos and whatever the commands I'm going to execute it, everything I'm going to provide you in the written document. So you will get all the commands also written. You can simply look at them accordingly. Let me show you that maybe, right? GitHub and DU labs. Okay. I think I need to check team. Then I'll give you some labs basically where we can go for it. I'll give you some documentation by tomorrow with which you can follow it. Okay. So that's all about it, team. I believe I'm open for questions now. If you have anything, let me know. Otherwise, we'll jump onto the things accordingly. Okay. Let me check this. DevOps. Okay, here it is. We have the content for everything. Git and everything is okay. Great. So I have the tree team here. I'm sharing the link with you all. I think we will share all the links with you all always. So you have all the contents here available. So share this one to everybody. So please follow this one team. I mean, there are some instruction with the Git installation, everything. Tomorrow we're going to start working on the Git. So you can follow this documentation. I have already given you beforehand itself, whatever we're doing, install document. We will be following this instruction to install the Git software on your Ubuntu instance. Means once you log into the Ubuntu team, you just simply going to run these instructions. Or let me finish with the installation part also for Git. We'll work on the Git tomorrow, how to work on it, everything. Okay. Just copy these commands, team. Just for thing only, I'm showing you how to install something. So take this command, copy paste it here. That's all you're gonna do it. Whatever the instructions which I'm giving you, copy paste them always so it will be able to easily done accordingly. Okay. So here it is. There is something it is going to do it accordingly based on the instruction you run it. But if you're trying to understand the command stream, you must have a basic Linux. Again, I'm telling you, you must go to the basic Linux commands to understand these things. apt-get is something called as a package manager in your Ubuntu Linux to install some software from the internet. Okay. So here it is, which I'm doing it most of the stuff. Installing the Git software right now in my Ubuntu machine. Just the introduction part, I'm just leaving it. I'm not going to work on Git. Just for the installation, you can finish this installation today by tomorrow, maybe. We're going to work on the Git accordingly. Yep, just give me a second right now. And then once we're done with this, we are open for questions. So here it is. After you installed it, you can check that git version. You can see that my Git software is installed right now successfully on this one. We're going to work on the Git, but I'll stop it here for today. How do I create EC2 instance and how do I log into it? And then finally, how do I install Git? Tomorrow, we're going to start working on the Git and we'll try to move on to the next tools accordingly. So here it is, all about it. So I'm open for questions, team. If you have any questions, I'm open it. So I'll take your chat window now and I'll see it. Let me know if you have any questions. We can start.
Hello. Hello, sir. Do you hear me? Sir, do you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. Tell me. Tell me.
Yes. So my question, the last part which you told us about the root directory, I don't
Mhm.
understand what is all about that sudo. Sudo is like a troublesome for me. So could you
No, no.
explain what is sudo means here?
Basically, right? Okay, let me explain you a simple way, right? When you are installing some software in your Windows machine, when you do it, means when you're running something like it will ask you the administrator privileges, right? Something needs to be run as administrator to install something. Agree?
Yeah, yeah.
So here the root user is like an administrator. So in order to install a software, here we must require the sudo privileges. Sudo is like you right click on run as administrator, you write something somewhere. Here we take that sudo su hyphen, we switch to the root user. With root user, you can install everything. Otherwise, it will go through the permission issues while running installing something.
Okay.
Okay.
And my second question is, so what is the basic difference between the system user and the administrator? Like suppose my name is Harshad Ketpa, so my system
Mhm,
name is Harshad, and
mhm.
as I see that people talk about, okay, you're on the system user and now you have to go on administrator user. So what is the
Correct.
difference?
So it is only that the administrator you'll have with administrator, you can do everything in your system. You can delete, create, install something, you can do it. Let's say that right now I'm an Ubuntu user, right? The only difference that you'll find is that permission levels that you get it in a system is called as system user as your own user account. The system user will have a full privileges, admin not full privileges, administrator will have a full privileges. Let me show you here. Let's say that I'm going to a folder called as this one. Let's say that I'm creating a file, touchnaresh.txt. What it says for me? Permission denied, because I'm a normal user which does not have a full privileges to create something or delete something accordingly. Administrator
Okay,
will have full privileges. You can do everything on your system, whereas a normal user or system user does not have a full privileges to execute something accordingly. That is the
sure,
difference.
sure. Thank you so much, sir.
No problem. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, all of you. I'm not hearing anything. So yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Tell me.
Sir, I believe there is no one to ask any question. Can I ask you one more question?
Yep. Please go ahead. Why not?
Yes, and just now you have installed everything on your. You talked about VM and you talked about hypervisor. But sir, I really don't understand that. Okay, if I'm talking about the hypervisor, so what would be the difference between the hypervisor, the VM, or this AWS? They both are same, right?
Both are same thing. In your case, if you in your laptop, if you want to set up in your local, you must install a hypervisor on your own, right? But in a
Okay.
AWS case, they already have a hypervisor set up everything. You're just choosing to install something, right? Whatever the operating system you're asking it, they are
Hmm.
installing the operating system and they're creating the server ready for you. They're giving the IP address to log into it. That is the only thing
Okay.
that is happening here. Underlying,
Okay.
they will
So
use the same thing.
sure, so 100% clear, explicit. But my question here is that are companies jumping from hypervisor from their local machine to the AWS? Is it feasible? Is it viable? Is it convenient for them?
See, the hypervisor technology is same thing, right? Earlier, the hypervisor, you are the one you installing it in your organization bare metal and you are maintaining everything. That is what is something called as your premise data centers. Your organization is maintaining everything. In a cloud
Okay,
environment, the cloud service are maintaining the hypervisor everything. You are worried about creating instances for them. The maintenance
okay,
part is taken over for the service provider and you worried about creating instances. That's all. Still,
okay,
it is the same thing.
okay.
Okay.
And I just have to give my payments and bills for whatever I use.
Whatever you use, that's it. It's a pay as you go model, right? You create something, you pay for them, they will maintain everything for you. That's all.
Sure,
In your case, you
clear.
have to maintain everything yourself.
Sure. Clear, 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 clear.
Right. So on a high level, where it can it be used, how to set up in Jenkins, etc. I did not get this question exactly. Basically, on a high level, which can be used, where it can be used, what? Uh, if someone my key value paid file is corrupt, is deleted. If somehow my key, you will never be able to access that again until unless you create a username and password before you deleting your cave files. Basically, try to understand. Once after I log in now, As a Linux user, I can create multiple users here. If I lose the key file, I can log in with my user. I need to enable multiple users who can log into the system. By default, AWS allows you to log in with the key. Once after you log in with the first time key, then you can create multiple users. With users, you can log in. If you lose the key in that case, there is no problem. But if you did not create any user, but still use the key file, then you will lose the access to the server completely. You must reach out to the AWS support to regain the access, or you delete a server and create a new one accordingly for you.
Okay.
I think,
And sir, hello.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Sir, I need to ask you about the other services, the cloud service, such as this Alibaba Cloud and this Google Cloud, and of course, Microsoft Azure Cloud. So, are we going to use the same technologies, the SSH, the technologies which you're going to teach us? Will they be useful, these same technologies there as well?
See, end of the day, if you want to connect to a Linux machine, SSH is the only protocol that we use. Whether you use any cloud, it doesn't matter. It is just that the SSH is a standard protocol for connecting to a Linux machine. The Linux machine is in different cloud, whatever the cloud, it doesn't matter about it.
Okay, okay. All I have is just to understand the tools from different clouds. That's it.
Correct. That's it. That's all about it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. If you're not speaking, please put yourself in the mute so that it is kind of disturbance.
Sure.
Yes, so when you explained about three-tier architecture, nowadays isn't the tier one is the one which performs load balancing? Yes, right. Whenever you send a request, when I'm saying it, the tier one is nothing but the client tier, or something where basically at the end of the day you are sending a request. When I say send a request, of course, I draw it a single picture there to make you understand that I'm installing the application in a single server, right? If I install the server and its application in a single server, that is a single point of failure for me. So in order to make sure my application is highly available, I would deploy the same application into multiple servers. So when I deploy into multiple servers, when I send a request, basically, I need to have something called as load balancer in between. So load balancer is the one which is going to send into the backend servers. So load balancer, that of course the request goes to the load balancer first. From the load balancer, the app request goes to the application servers or web servers accordingly. You're absolutely right on that point. Okay. So I'm getting error with Mac machine to start Ubuntu. Do we need to git bash in Mac? It is not required
Hi,
in Mac
Naresh.
specifically. Yeah.
Naresh, sorry to interrupt. This is Kumar.
Mhm.
People are, facing some issues. So just give me a minute. What I'll do, I'll mute everyone and then I'll unmute because there are few people who
Mhm.
are not able to unmute themselves. So give me a minute, huh?
Okay, sure, no problem.
I have unmuted all. Naresh, are you able to hear me? Your voice is not audible, Naresh. Give me a minute. Let me check. Okay, you are on mute. Am I
Okay.
audible, Naresh?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
you are
I'm able.
audible.
Yeah, I'm audible right now, I believe. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Yeah, as I was speaking about the Mac error here, the Mac machine does not require a git bash, but what exactly the error you are facing it while you're connecting it? If you can let me know that errors, we can discuss it accordingly. Whoever maybe posted that question, right? So means I hope you have enabled the things accordingly. The only thing is that you must have this one. Ensure that in your server, right, click on the security group section, go to the right side corner on your screen. There is a security group section here. Click on this one. It will open the security group section page, and click on this SG something. Ensure that you have all these rules properly set up. If you don't have these rules, the server does not accept or does not let you in. So you must have this rule set up. Ensure that you set up your security group properly so that it will going to help you connect to the server accordingly. So please look at that carefully one more time and get back to me. So how can you relate the hypervisor as part of what we did VM creation yesterday. I just want to understand where hypervisor came into our process and who will provide it. Is it some other third party? Yes, right. The third party like VM workstation, VirtualBox, there is something called as some other various vendors we have it that will be provided by them to create or install it on your hardware. So basically the hardware, the in your AWS, in our process, we are not worried about the hypervisor. We're just worried about the VM creation in a AWS, right? I'm just telling you to or make you to understand how does the virtual machines gets created. So underlying hypervisor setup is completely taken care by the AWS. Now on top of this hardware which you have it hypervisor, we are asking to create a server which is called as virtual machine, and we are worried about that part also. Underlying hardware part, virtualization part, everything will be taken care by the cloud service provider completely. So you need not to worry about it. Understand that when you're creating a virtual machine as part of a bigger hardware, you're taking some set of resources and creating a virtual machine accordingly. So that is what it is. The hypervisors are normally given to you by the third party. Like every organization is not a hypervisor provider, right? Like VMware is one of the company which provides the VMware hypervisor, VM workstation we call it. Likewise, we have very many hypervisors. We have it in the market. Couple of them use, but VMware is a popular one. VirtualBox is one of the popular one. We have it. OVMs, we have multiple things. Okay. Okay. So okay, from web we are not having control. It's showing us unmuted everyone except okay. Audience, I think Kumar, you need to take care of this one. I could not do from my side. Maybe a issue with the go to webinar, I believe. Meanwhile, team, I think you can type in the chat. Maybe that's what we can do it. If you have any questions. Okay. A lot of people not able to speak. Maybe, you know.
Yeah, Naresh, actually, I have unmuted everyone, but somehow, they are still showing as muted. So that's an issue. And it seems to be with GoToWebinar because
Correct.
there are few folks who are able to, ask questions. Like Harsh is one of them who asked
Correct.
a lot of questions.
Right.
So I'm still seeing, trying if, if there is any way, but seems to be with GoToWebinar, not with any, technical
Yeah.
glitch.
Yeah, I understand that. Maybe we need to work with this one, but meanwhile, can you let me see the questions panel at least? I think people are putting in the questions panel.
I gave you control, Naresh.
Thank you. Yes, Srikala. So the recording will be available to you maybe within next 12 hours, mostly as we promised. We'll be trying to upload within 2 hours or 3 hours maximum, but you can see that accordingly. Okay. I've posted all the installation guidelines from MacBook perspective. Correct. That's what it is. Okay. How do I disconnect from the Git bash? If you are logged into your system, basically you can simply type logout to do that one. This is what you can simply see it. If you simply type the logout or command on this one, you will be able to do it accordingly. So type the logout on your screen, so you should be able to do it. I don't know how that works. Can you explain, is it hand raising problem or something from admin tools of webinar usage that related to questions? See, it is a recommended assignment to use your questions panel rather than raising the hand. I know that raising multiple people may not be able to unmute at the same time. So it is recommended that you put your questions in the question panel always. So we'll be watching the question panel and then you can do it accordingly. Okay, so where can we get the videos uploaded? Will you share the URL? Yes, you will get an email with all the details, so you can go for it. If you don't have the Git repo, guys, I'm sharing, or I'm going to share it one more time, so don't worry about it. We will share all the things for you always. So here it is. I'm sharing the GitHub URL one more time. I'm trying to create a free instance on AWS Amazon. I'm seeing a payment gateway where we have to pay for this. I have selected the personalized usage. While setting up, basically it will ask you to deduct a couple of rupees if you're an Indian something, but they're going to return that one. For the first time, they will ask you to set up the card just to validate you are a valid user, Raghavendra. But after that one, they're not going to charge you until unless you use unnecessary service except the free tier, right? So that is the only thing. Once you set up or something, you must ensure that you put your credit card so that they will validate that you are an original, not a dummy user basically. They will deduct a couple of rupees if you're in an Indian, or if you're in a US side, they will deduct $1 for you, but they're going to return that also after a couple of days. So you must set up your credit card, then you can go ahead and create your instances accordingly. Okay, it is not going to charge you anything until unless you use only free tier services, but it is just ask you to set up credit card before that one. Right. Any other questions? How to close the machine in AWS? I'm using the paid version as I have been using more. Okay. Okay, here it is. When you are using a paid version, ensure that you terminate the EC2 instances. Will they detect after 1 year? Yes, right. That is a 1 year term you have it. After that one, go to the running instances here and select your instance, which is a paid version, and ensure that you go to the actions and then go to the instance state and then terminate it. That is what all you need it here. Under the instance state terminated, they will start charging for you. So you have to use that accordingly. Okay. So Giridhar, I hope you are clear. Yes, after 1 year, they will start charging you. So be careful about it. Anyway, they're going to send you the email notification, everything when they start charging you. So be careful and watch your things account. Free tier only for 1 year. That's correct. Pomulati, that's correct. It's for 1 year. Will you send all the steps of installation from AWS to Ubuntu VM? Yes, we have already shared a guide with you, Srikala. There is a document which I've already shared with you all. I think you can go to that, or we'll send you one more time if you need it. So yeah. Okay, great. Okay, team, I think that's all about it. Stop is something we're still going to use it. Terminate is something like destroying it, right? Like stop is like you stop your Windows machine and start it back. Terminate is like you're destroying your operating system and then recreate or reinstall the operating system completely. A fresh machine comes up. That is the difference between a stop and start. Stop and start will not cause anything, but terminating instances will not get back the things again. Okay, like formatting your instance is terminating your instance. Do I terminate the instance every day for doing the demo, or can I stop it? You can stop it for now, Gautam. So just stop it every day and then you can start using it again. Ensure that you're not closing something, but But now I think you can start creating one instance, stop it, and whenever you want to practice again, you start it up. That should be good enough for you. Stop and start. I'll tell you when to terminate them. If the instance is stopped, the villa is still charged and has stopped the state. Okay, so I think yes, that will be charged still here because you're still occupying the disk space and everything. Because when you stop it, that is you're still utilizing that resource of the AWS, so they will charge you accordingly. They will charge for EBS, yeah, block storage. Okay, team, I think that's all for today then. We'll see you tomorrow with content again, whatever you want to discuss. Have a great day. We can see you tomorrow. Okay, Kumar, I believe we are good, right? So good to close the session for today. If you have any closing words, you can say it. Otherwise, we'll close out.
No, sure. Thank you so much, everyone. And we are really, feeling sorry about today's technical glitch which we had. And tomorrow we'll be having, a session from 9 to 11 sharp. We'll try to, have it within time limits. Today's session got extended because of AWS and few issues which we are facing, but time will remain same, 9 to 11. Thank you, everyone, and bear with us. You will definitely get good quality from all of us. Thank you so much once again. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great week, evening ahead. Was problem with audio? I mean, that's a go-to issue, a go-to meeting problem, Harsh, basically, try to understand. So from our side, we'll try to unmute you, but it is not letting us unmute as the administrator also, or as an organizer also. It's that we're going to work on that with GoToWebinar, guys. We'll do that. Okay. What is the question you asked? I mean, is that a specific question you asked? Can you put it maybe somewhere if you asked it already? If you're asking about a GoToWebinar problem, that's a problem with GoToWebinar itself. We are not responded. If you have any specific question, we can answer you. Since you are not able to unmute yourself. Okay, so no problem. We'll see you tomorrow again. Okay, take care.